This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto was trapped in his mind during Chunin exam finals. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
In certain situations, it's preferable to be proven incorrect than correct. For the first time in his life, Naruto Uzumaki, the village hidden in the leaves #1 prankster and knucklehead ninja, was going through this. As the Chunin exam finals and his battle with Neji Hyuga drew near, he had been feeling incredibly depressed for days, almost panicking. As a result, he ended up back at the training ground where Kakashi had given him, Sakura, and Sasuke their genin ranks after finding himself aimlessly wandering the village. Was it really only a few months ago? It seemed like a lifetime. Naruto was shocked to discover that he wasn't alone when he arrived at the training ground with its 3 training posts. Neji's cousin and most recent victim, Hinata Hyuga, was present and appeared to be staring at one of the posts. Naruto had said, "Oh, hey, Hinata," in a quiet, almost hesitant voice. Hinata turned and jumped, her eyes showing a great deal of surprise rather than fear. Her typically quiet and reserved voice was filled with surprise at seeing Naruto there. "Oh, Naruto," she exclaimed. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, nothing really," Naruto said, attempting, as usual, to conceal his anxieties behind a false sense of joy. "But it simply wasn't working this time. It's just, this is where I became a genin, so I come here to think sometimes." With a worried tone, Hinata said, "Sure, but aren't you going to be late?" Naruto gazed at her, his eyes revealing to her the depth of his fear. Hinata gasped at how terrified he was. She had never seen anyone so exposed as he was at that precise moment. "What's wrong, Naruto?" "I'm just really worried about the fight, that's all," Naruto said to her. He never gave it much thought, but he wasn't entirely sure why he was being so open with Hinata. Somehow, it felt right to tell her. "I mean, I know I'm always the underdog and all that, but I'm so worried that I'll screw up, this time in front of the whole village." Hinata gained a little bravery from Naruto's voice, which was clearly filled with fear, and she moved toward him. She spoke quietly, steadily, and surprisingly confidently, with one hand resting lightly on his arm. Naruto shook his head and looked at the typically bashful girl in front of him with astonished and amazed eyes. "You know, Naruto, you may screw up, but you know something?" he asked. "I know for a fact that, even if you do mess up, you'll just get right back up and try again, just like you do every time you do something wrong. I think that determination, that will to keep going, is what true strength is. I think you're an incredibly strong person, Naruto. That's what I've always admired most about you, Naruto. How you could always keep getting up and trying again, even when everyone around you was knocking you down. It always made you, how can I say it? A proud failure, from my point of view." He had always believed that no one had noticed how hard he tried, but Hinata's words had shown him wrong about both Hinata and herself. But now he realized that was precisely why Hinata admired him. He was now on the verge of leaving the training area to go to the arena and take on Neji. But first, he needed to tell the girl he now realized he didn't really know a few things. He began by saying, "Thanks for that, Hinata." He paused, reflecting, then said, "I really needed to hear that. I'm glad someone has seen how hard I've always tried. Thank you." His words were not enough. He uttered the words, "Hinata, I always thought you were a dark, quiet weirdo," in a slightly reflective tone. Hinata's expression dimmed. He went on to say, "But you know, I actually like people like you." As he said this, Naruto glanced up and noticed distant fireworks. With a panic, he thought, "Oh, no, I'm going to be late." He turned to say something else to Hinata, but before he could do so, it appeared to him that fireworks were approaching. Naruto instinctively closed them to shield his eyes just before they would have slammed into them. He had anticipated a loud noise or excruciating pain, but what did he find instead? There was silence. Naruto reluctantly opened his eyes to discover that he was in what appeared to be the basement of his apartment complex. It appeared to be a boiler room, and it took him a moment to realize this. A boiler room, huh? It isn't possible. A voice bellowed, "Ha ha ha. It's about time you came to visit me, brat." Naruto turned, startled to discover that he was standing in front of the Kyuubi's cage, as he had just realized. He cried out in exasperation, "I don't have time for this. I can't be late to the finals. I need to get to the arena," he said, his brows furrowed in resolve. "I have to beat Neji." Because that's where he was. The enormous fox in the cage in Naruto's mindscape lay down and put his head on his front paws. With a mixture of laughter and what appeared to be morbid curiosity, he looked at Naruto. The fox inquired, "And just exactly how do you intend to get out of here?" Naruto replied, "What do you mean, you stupid fox? Kyuubi used one of his tails to gesture above and behind Naruto. To his surprise, Naruto discovered that he was imprisoned in a cage that resembled Kyuubi's. There were bars above, below, and on 3 sides of him. The gate leading into the fox's cage was the 4th wall of his cage. Naruto ran to the bars that were farthest away from the fox and started beating on them, asking, "What the hell is that?" The cavernous space echoed with the sound of fists hitting metal, but Naruto failed to even dent any of the bars. The fox observed everything with the same morbid curiosity and laughter that he had previously shown toward Naruto. "You?" roared Naruto as he suddenly wheeled on the fox. Kyuubi appeared surprised by this. "Me? What in the world do you mean, brat? I didn't do that. You're not trapped in here by anything I've done," said the fox. Naruto gave him a suspicious look for a moment. To his surprise, the fox's eyes showed no signs of dishonesty. A third voice abruptly entered the discussion. The voice remarked, "Kukuku." "Indeed, Naruto, your tenant speaks the truth." Naruto pivoted and scowled at the origin of this unfamiliar voice. Orochimaru. How did he enter his mindscape, though? The apparition mentioned, "Oh, this isn't the real me," as if it could read Naruto's mind. The phantom Orochimaru rapped his knuckles on the bars closest to him and said, "You're in that cage now because I put you there. It's a seal. The seal I put on you that fool Jiraiya released wasn't the only one I put on you that day in the forest. This was the other one," he then said, "and let me tell you, there's only one being in this world that is powerful enough to break this seal, and he's right behind you," before vanishing. Slowly, Naruto turned. The fox was indeed the only one behind him. What did he mean by that? Wondering out loud, Naruto asked. Kyuubi laughed. "What indeed?" he said nonchalantly. The Hinata was stunned. She was the kind of person Naruto had claimed to like. It must have been a dream, but no, the spot where Neji had injured her was still hurting in her chest. However, that would imply that Naruto genuinely liked her. To put it mildly, Hinata was shocked that Naruto would say that after she had witnessed him at his most vulnerable. Hinata took a moment to realize that Naruto was turning away, but he froze just as she was ready to turn away. He appeared to be observing the distant fireworks before he suddenly fell. Hinata was startled out of her daze when she saw him fall to the ground. As he fell, she sprinted to her blonde crush. He was breathing easily, his body was limp and appeared to be boneless, and he had lost consciousness when she arrived. Abruptly, she heard a new voice behind her. The voice called out, "Hinata? Are you here? Kiba?" Never in her life had she been happier to hear her untamed teammate's voice than she was now. "Kiba!" she exclaimed. He rushed to where she was crouched next to Naruto's unconscious body as soon as he saw her. "What in the hell? Why is Naruto here, and why is he unconscious?" Kiba responded. Hinata gave a brief explanation of what had transpired. Kiba winked to indicate that he was merely making fun of his friend. "So, you talked to him without fainting, then, as he was leaving, he fainted? Come on, Hinata, even you have to realize that's a little far-fetched," Kiba said. The dog. User merely laughed when Hinata huffed at Kiba while crossing her arms. When the bashful girl opened her mouth to speak, her teammate waved her away. "All right, I'll be serious, I'm sorry, that was just too good to resist," she replied. Hinata merely sulked. Hinata nodded in agreement. "Okay, you said you checked him and he's not hurt, right? Then I guess we probably better get him to the hospital, we can't really leave him out here unconscious." Kiba hefted Naruto onto his shoulder after saying that. For an instant, he was taken aback by the blonde's lightness. He had been the target of the child's assaults, and he was aware that he was facing a formidable foe at that precise moment. It seemed, in some way, wrong that such a powerful person would be so light. He dismissed that and headed for the Hokage Tower, Hinata trailing closely behind. On their way to the village hospital, Hinata and Kiba noticed the third Hokage strolling down the street they were following. Kiba remarked, mainly to himself, "He must be on his way to the finals," he exclaimed. "Hey, maybe he can help us out, Lord Hokage." Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, looked at the two genin with his dark, compassionate eyes. "Oh, Kiba, Hinata, what can I do for you?" he said. His gaze landed on Naruto's motionless figure over Kiba's shoulder as he spoke. "And why are you carrying Naruto?" The Hokage was promptly informed by the two genin of the events that transpired at the training ground. For a moment, Hiruzen seemed to consider what he had heard. He said, mainly to himself, "This sounds like... No, it couldn't be, could it?" He noticed Hinata and Kiba staring at him as he spoke, their expressions a mixture of interest and concern. When the two genin called to him, he thought of another moment and made a shadow clone that followed the same route. The two genin nodded, and the procession of 3 conscious ninja turned toward the hospital, which was fortunately not far from where they were. The real Hiruzen turned to them and said authoritatively, "Let's get him to the hospital." The clone of Hiruzen, after reaching the cage's box, the clone took a seat next to the case cage. He muttered, "I apologize for keeping you waiting, Lord Case Cage." "Not a problem, Lord Hokage," rejoined the case cage. "Still, it's a good thing the finals are being held here, for your sake, since you can't even make it here on time. A long trip would have been hard for you, even as strong as you are, given your age. Isn't it about time you choose the 5th Hokage?" After laughing heartily at the case cage's remark, Hiruzen stood up and said, "Nonsense, I'll be here for some time to come yet." He then addressed the audience from the front of the cage's box. "Welcome, all, and our deepest thanks for coming to the final competition of this year's Chunin selection exams. We ask that no one leaves until the 8 candidates who made it through the preliminary rounds have completed all of their matches. Now, everyone, enjoy." That being said, he went back to his seat. The case cage remarked, "You said 8 candidates, aren't you missing one?" The 6 current candidates were being shown the new matchups for the final tournament by the proctor on the ground. Before Shikamaru saw that his first opponent, Dosu, was no longer listed, Neji, Shikamaru, and Gaara were all unsure of their initial opponents. He made the decision to speak. "While I'm sure this is more trouble than it's worth, what's going to happen if Sasuke and Naruto don't show up?" Shikamaru nodded in agreement with the proctor's harsh response. "If a candidate is not here when his name is called, he forfeits his match." Following his reminder that the rules remained the same, he said, "These are the opponents for the first match, Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. Those 2 stay. The rest of you can go to the waiting area." The 5 candidates whose names weren't called moved, leaving Neji standing alone. Under his mask, the case cage was smiling broadly back in the cage box. "So, it seems the Uzumaki kid isn't coming. Good, good, that match would have been a waste of time, anyway. There's no way that kid could beat the Hyuga genius," he was thinking to himself. Only Neji was present, as Hiruzen noticed. He turned and said softly, "Tell Genma to call this match. Naruto's obviously not coming." Rado had arrived just after Hiruzen himself and was waiting behind the Hokage's chair. Then Rado disappeared in a cloud of smoke. He reappeared in the cage box and said softly, "Call the match, the Uzumaki kid isn't coming." Genma nodded, and Rado disappeared once more. This time, Genma addressed the audience. "The announcement, it seems Naruto Uzumaki isn't here, so he automatically forfeits his match. Winner, Neji Hyuga," was greeted by a number of boos and moans. To the surprise of everyone, Naruto's pink-haired teammate Sakura Haruno didn't even appear to be aware that her teammate had been eliminated from the competition. Genma spoke up once more. "All right, then, will Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara please come down here?" Neji gave a snort. "Guess that kid was all talk," he softly remarked. He passed Gaara, who was heading down, as he left the arena. Neither genin gave the other any kind of acknowledgement. When Gaara reached the ground, he crossed his arms and stood. Once more, Genma yelled, "Sasuke Uchiha, get down here." Hiruzen let out a sigh in the cage box. He muttered, "I guess he inherited his sensei's terrible sense of timing." "Rado, it looks like we have 2 matches in a row that will end in disqualification. Tell Genma." The case cage questioned, "Sasuke Uchiha is disqualified. Don't you think that will annoy the people who came here just to see this match? Couldn't you make allowances for them?" Hiruzen let out a sigh. "I cannot show favoritism, Lord Case Cage. Just as you could not show favoritism to your son, Gaara. Were these exams in your own land, I cannot show it for the Uchiha boy when they're here, either," he replied with a stern tone. "Rado, tell Genma to call it." Genma disqualified Sasuke, and the scene from earlier was replayed. Even Genma was growing weary of this farce by this point. "Okay, fine, then, I guess the first real match of this tournament will be Kankuro versus Shino Aburame, so you 2 get down here," he yelled. Since his match didn't really matter, Kankuro would have withdrew, but he wasn't going to do that now that Gaara's match with Sasuke wouldn't take place, so he and Shino ended up facing each other on the arena floor. Genma yelled and jumped out of the way of the 2 genin, saying, "Good, it's about time we saw a fight. Now, at last, let the final round of the Chunin exams begin." The Hiruzen, Kiba, and Hinata were met with a number of strange glances and a number of hostile glares directed at Naruto as they arrived at the hospital. All of those people shuddered in terror as Hiruzen unleashed a controlled outburst of killer intent at the origins of the glares. "Get me a doctor, immediately, this boy needs immediate attention," the Hokage said in his most commanding voice. A gurney and a doctor arrived in a matter of seconds. After Kiba placed Naruto's motionless body on the gurney, The three ninja in hot pursuit wheeled the gurney away. Hiruzen told the nurse that the two genin were with him, so she left them alone when she tried to stop them. Before long, three apprehensive ninja were observing Naruto in a hospital room while the doctor prodded him. After a few minutes, the doctor approached the Hokage and said, in a bewildered tone, "I can't find a single thing wrong with this boy, Lord Hokage. I have no idea why he's unconscious or why he won't wake up, he just is." The third gave a nod, and the doctor hurried out of the room because he had other things to do. "Hinata, Kiba," responded Hiruzen. Curiosity in their eyes, his subordinates nodded. "I am assigning you to a mission, effective immediately. You two are to act as bodyguards for Naruto until he has come out of his current unconscious state. Understood?" The two genin nodded. The Hokage disappeared in a cloud of smoke after saying, "Good, now, I'm going to see if I can't track down my old students, Jiraiya and Tsunade, to see what they can do to help out with this." He needed to do a lot of work. The Hinata, Kiba and Hinata entered Naruto's chamber. Hinata walked over to his bed and peered down at him as Kiba sat in one of the chairs along the wall. Neither of them was certain of the exact moment, but Naruto's shirt was cut and his jacket was open, exposing his stomach and chest. Hinata cast a startled glance down. Naruto's stomach had a glowing seal of some sort on it. She called out, "Kiba," and motioned for him to approach. Kiba moved toward it. Hinata gestured toward the seal. Kiba looked up at Hinata and asked rhetorically, "What the hell is that?" Hinata's worried eyes met his. Her words were, "I think I know what it is, but it's not my place to say, really. All I know is if that's what I think it is, the way it's pulsing right now doesn't mean anything good in the best case scenario. And in the worst case scenario, it could mean the end of us all." Kiba found it hard to believe what he had just heard. The end of us all. Surely, it can't be that serious, he exclaimed, making every effort to downplay the gravity involved. The fact that he did believe his teammate was what made him so anxious, not that he didn't believe her. Hinata merely gazed into Kiba's eyes, her own white eyes telling Kiba exactly what she didn't need to say. "You wanna bet?" The look made Kiba shiver, and the somewhat untamed genin shuddered. Hinata turned her attention from her teammate back to her old crush. She gently brushed his hair back from his face, where it had fallen in all the excitement, and reached out to do so. Thought to herself, "I hope you'll be okay, Naruto," and smiled gently. As he watched, Kiba gave a little growl. He asked himself, why did it have to be him? He couldn't decide whether he felt bad for Hinata because Naruto didn't understand her feelings or whether he was jealous that she didn't like him, so he just settled on something in the middle. Why did she have to have a crush on the densest, goofiest guy I've ever met? He asked. Kiba shook his head and sighed. He knew there was really nothing for it. He moved forward to try to console Hinata, but a chakra pulse threw both genin backward before he could put a hand on her shoulder. Sitting in two of the chairs along the room's wall, the two fell asleep and glanced up at Naruto, half expecting to see him awake. The blonde was still asleep. Half to Kiba and half to herself. Hinata questioned, what in the world was that? Kiba simply shrugged. He had no idea what it was, but he was aware that it only served to highlight Naruto's inner strength. It was both amazing and a little frightening. Naruto, for what seemed like hours, Naruto had searched the interior of his rather tiny cage for any signs of weakness. He had not discovered anything. The fox had been observing him the entire time he had been doing this, with a mixture of morbid curiosity and complete confusion. At one point, the fox said, "Why do you bother looking for a way out of there, brat? As much as I hate that reptilian. Being that was in here before, he's absolutely right. The only one who can break out of that seal is in here with you." Naruto let out a sigh. He wasn't particularly happy with his current circumstances, and the fox's remarks didn't make things any better. He told Kyuubi, "I don't care what that bastard Orochimaru said," as he turned to face the fox directly with his enormous red eyes. He glared at the fox, his eyes completely devoid of fear, and said, "I'll find some way out of here, and I'll do it without letting you out. I never give up, and I never go back on my word. That's my ninja way." Kyuubi gave the boy in front of him a chuckle, telling the blonde, "You're lucky this cage is between us. If not for it, I would have devoured you long ago, and your pathetic village with you." With anger blazing in his eyes, Naruto took 3 slow steps toward the Kyuubi's cage. He gritted his teeth and uttered, "You can threaten me all you want, you stupid fox, but I will never let you lay a paw on the village." The boy pulsed his chakra as he said, "Even if it means I have to give myself over to the most evil force the world has ever seen, I will protect the village from any threat that comes against it, even you." He knew that this was a pathetic attempt to scare the fox. He was unaware that doing so would cause Kiba and Hinata to lose their minds. No one could have predicted what happened next. The fox chuckled. Naruto could tell by the expression in the creature's eyes and the way the fox was rolling around when he made the sound that the fox was laughing, even though it sounded like some strange mix of a bark and a roar. Not amused, Naruto glared at the fox while folding his arms. A minute later, Kyuubi relaxed and smiled at Naruto. "You know what, brat," the fox replied, continuing to be amused, "I'm going to do something for you. Your determination might be foolish, and your courage may be all bravado, but you still earned this. I'm going to tell you my name." Naruto gave an eye roll. He remarked mockingly, "Your name? Your name is Kyuubi, isn't it? Oh, big prize?" The fox growled. "You really think my name is Nine Tails?" asked he. "That's just what you pathetic humans call me since no one can remember my true name anymore. But I'm going to tell it to you. I am Kurama." Naruto would never have been able to pinpoint exactly how he knew he had received a truly amazing gift, but he could sense it somehow. Another thing that neither he nor anyone else would have anticipated was that he bowed to the fox. He said, "It's an honor to truly make your acquaintance at long last, Kurama," in a formal manner. He stood up from his bow and met the fox's eyes, and both of them sensed that their relationship had changed in some way. Even though the change was slight, both of them could sense it. The dormant animosity between them had subsided to some extent. Kurama considered grinning at the boy's display of formality, but decided it wouldn't be wise to frighten the blonde at that time, so he simply nodded. After that, he had an idea. "Boy, why do you not blame me for all the pain you've gone through in your life?" asked the man. Naruto gave a shrug. He retorted, "Is it your fault the villagers are uneducated morons?" Kurama laughed. "No, that would be the fault of your beloved third Hokage," he responded in a somewhat caustic tone. "But I'm surprised you see it that way. I mean, really, if it weren't for me being in here, you probably wouldn't have been treated so badly for so many years." Naruto smiled slightly at the fox. "I'm guessing that's the closest thing to an apology I'll ever get from you," he replied. Kurama acknowledged Naruto's point with a small nod. "Really, though, I know it's not your fault. Now, my parents being dead. I have to assume that is your fault, somehow or another, and believe me, I'm nowhere near forgiving you for that one." Kurama exhaled deeply. "I doubt it'll do much good, but I think this is a good time to tell you what really happened the night you were born," said the man. With an eyebrow raised in interest, Naruto gazed into the fox's crimson eyes. The Hiruzen upon entering Naruto's hospital room, the Hokage was forced to raise an eyebrow at what he saw. He had come to see how the blonde was doing, but he couldn't help but be distracted by what he saw. Evidently, Hinata had dragged a chair up beside the boy's bed, and she was sitting there right now, holding Naruto's hand in one while stroking it with the other. Hiruzen cleared his throat, shook his head, and grinned. Squeaking, Hinata jumped out of her seat and turned to face the Hokage, her face flushed scarlet. She said, "Why?" "Yes, Lord Hokage?" Hiruzen laughed. "Don't worry, Hinata, I'm glad he's finally got someone who will care for him," he replied. Hinata smiled, but her face remained flushed. "Anyway, I came to check up on Naruto and to let you and Kiba know I'm going to have Inoichi and Ino Yamanaka come and take a look at him later today." Hinata said, "Of course, Lord Hokage," and bowed. "But do you really have to pull them away from the finals just for this?" Although Hiruzen was a little taken aback that a genin of all people had caught him off guard, he made the decision to at least partially explain his thinking to Hinata. Due to Naruto's special circumstances, his well-being is a matter of grave importance for the whole village, he continued. And if those circumstances have anything to do with his current state, it is of utmost importance that we have him examined immediately. Hinata turned to face her teammate, who was reclining in his chair and listening to the two of them talk. Kiba had not yet spoken, and Hinata wasn't sure what he could say. "Kiba, would you mind giving the Hokage and me a moment in private?" she said. Kiba was about to say no when he noticed Hinata's expression. In a quiet voice, she begged him to do this for her. "Okay, sure," he replied, smiling slightly at her. "But just so you know, it doesn't matter to me what secret the knucklehead has. He's a comrade and a friend, and nothing is going to change that." When Hiruzen heard that, he had to smile. "Kiba, if you're truly sincere in saying that, you're welcome to stay," he said with kindness. "Just know that anything you hear about him in this room stays in this room and is an S-ranked secret. Telling it to anyone who does not already know is punishable by death." Kiba nodded despite a slight gulp. He said, "I meant what I said, to Hinata and Hiruzen. He's my friend, and nothing I learn here will change that. As for the other, I know how to keep my mouth shut." Hiruzen grinned. "In case you're wondering, Kiba, your mother and sister already know about this," he continued. Kiba nodded and waited to find out more about his rival and friend. "So if you feel the need to discuss it with them, feel free." With gratitude in her eyes for her teammate's words, Hinata grinned at Kiba. She said, I already know, too, which surprised the boy with the dark hair. I found out at the same time Naruto did. Hiruzen gave a kind smile. Go ahead, Hinata, what is it you wanted to say? Asked the man. After she and Kiba had earlier noticed the seal on Naruto's stomach, Hinata went to the far side of his bed and opened his shirt, which she had previously closed. This isn't Naruto's normal seal, I'm sure of it, she said, pointing to the seal and addressing the Hokage. Kiba approached and peered curiously at the seal. He teased her, asking, and how would you know that, Hinata? Hinata reddened. I've had her monitoring the seal ever since she found out about what's in it, Hiruzen stated to Kiba. Her Byakugan has been most helpful. And she's right, that isn't his normal seal, he further stated after taking a quick look at the seal. Kiba looked at it more closely this time and saw that the boy's stomach appeared to have 2 seals on it. He speculated, I'm guessing that this one is what's causing him to be like he is right now. Hiruzen and Hinata both nodded as he traced one finger over the glowing outer one. His question was, but then, what's this? As he traced over the inner, black seal. Hiruzen gave his genin a proud smile. That seal, Kiba, is the S-rank secret I mentioned before. That seal contains the 9-tailed fox, Kyuubi no Kitsune, he stated bluntly. Kiba recoiled in surprise. Confused, he said, the Kyuubi? But we were taught that the 4th Hokage killed him. Hiruzen gave a nod. The deception was necessary. I declared Naruto's Jinchuriki status an S-rank secret in the hope that he would have a chance at a normal life, he said. But the truth is, even the 4th couldn't kill the Kyuubi. No one can kill a tailed beast. They're technically just huge masses of sentient chakra to begin with, so, in a sense, they're not really alive in the first place. As such, the only way to defeat them is to seal them, as the 4th did. He sealed the fox into Naruto here the very night Naruto was born, giving his own life in the process. Kiba gave that some thought. So that's why everyone calls Naruto a monster and demon and all that, he continued. Both Hiruzen and Hinata nodded once more. He remarked somewhat cynically, good luck with your attempts to provide him with a normal life there, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen acknowledged his embarrassment with a nod. Kiba then turned to face Hinata. How did you come to find out about this, Hinata? Hinata sighed. She knew she would have to explain this at some point, but she never imagined Kiba would be the first person she told. You remember when we all took our genin exams, Naruto failed, right? She said. Kiba gave a nod. Kiba nodded once more. He had heard that Naruto had taken the forbidden scroll of sealing, but he had not heard the part about Mizuki. Well, after that, Mizuki Sensei tricked Naruto into stealing the forbidden scroll of sealing. I'm sure you heard something about that, too. By then, I had gotten into the habit of watching him sometimes, and I was there that night when he opened the scroll and trained until he had learned the shadow clone jutsu. After that, Iruka Sensei and Mizuki Sensei showed up. Mizuki Sensei tried to take the scroll for himself, and Iruka Sensei protected Naruto. But he couldn't protect Naruto from Mizuki Sensei's words. Her face trembled as she recalled precisely what Mizuki had said that evening. Mizuki Sensei told Naruto that the fox had been sealed into him, but he claimed that Naruto had been taken over by the fox and was the fox now. Not going to him to comfort him that night was the hardest thing I've ever done, Hinata said. After listening to Hinata's words for a minute, Kiba remained silent. He questioned, that's not true, though, is it? Naruto's not the fox, is he? Rather than respond, Hiruzen produced a scroll. He inquired, do either of you have a kunai? With a curious expression on his face, Kiba took one out and handed it to the Hokage. Hiruzen then sealed the scroll with the kunai. He questioned, is this now a kunai? Kiba gave a headshake. Hiruzen just gave the scroll to Kiba. Kiba grinned after giving what had just transpired some thought. He said, I see what you mean, after a minute. That was a stupid question, wasn't it? Hiruzen laughed. It's a question I wish more people would ask rather than simply assuming the answer, he stated. He sighed and said, I also wish more people could understand that Naruto really is the greatest hero this village has ever had. This surprised Hinata and Kiba, who both turned to face the Hokage. How so? Inquired Kiba. Well, you both know that the Kyuubi had been attacking our village, Hiruzen responded, and that the 4th Hokage sealed the creature into Naruto. What you may not have realized, though, is that, by containing the fox within his tiny body, and keeping it there to this day, Naruto not only saved the village, he has kept it safe with every breath he has taken for over 12 years now. Hinata grinned as she turned to face Naruto. Simply put, I always knew he was a hero, she said. With a playful pat on Hinata's shoulder, Kiba said, I know he's always been your hero, I just never realized he was mine, too. After giving Kiba a smile, Hinata took Naruto's hand in hers and started to stroke it once more. Whispering, please come back to me, Naruto, she said. The clone of Hiruzen so far, the finals had been going well. After a protracted battle in which Shino ultimately prevailed over Kankuro, Shikamaru had apparently wasted the last 3 hours while he and Tamari engaged in combat. Why are you not calling this match? It's obvious that your ninja there has no chance of beating Tamari at all, the Kazekage said to Hiruzen's clone. Hiruzen laughed. Simply, you may yet be surprised, Lord Kazekage, he said. There's more to Shikamaru than you might think. Beneath his mask, the Kazekage hissed softly. That may be so, he considered to himself, but I don't really care about this match, it's Gaara's fight that really matters. Everyone was shocked when Shikamaru used his shadow possession jutsu to finally capture Tamari as he was thinking this. Through the trees that grew close to the wall, he had extended his shadow all the way around the arena until it approached Tamari from behind. She didn't anticipate it. Then, using his jutsu, Shikamaru forced Tamari to pick up and shut her fan. Then he made her beat herself up with it, much to the amusement of the audience. Tamari passed out in a matter of seconds, and Shikamaru was proclaimed the victor. He let out a sigh. He remarked, that was a pain. I barely had enough chakra to hold her that long. Kazekage growled. He pondered, oh, my, that's unfortunate. I hope she wakes up in time to do her part in our plan. This concludes the first round of the finals. Due to the first 2 matches not putting a strain on the combatants, we will move directly to the second round. Neji, Hyuga and Gaara, please come down here, the proctor yelled from the arena floor as the 2 shinobi moved to the ground, their gaits and demeanors somewhat alike. Neither gave the other any recognition. The proctor yelled, let the second round of the Chunin selection tournament begin, and leapt out of the way of the fighters when they had both arrived. Naruto let out a sigh. If that's true, he told Kurama after the story was finished, I really can't blame you for what happened. Thank you for telling me. Kurama gave a nod. He asserted, you deserve to know the truth, I'm just glad you believe me. I mean, it's not like you don't have reason to distrust me. Naruto gave a headshake. Simply put, truth is truth, regardless of the source, he stated. Kurama gave the blonde a startled look. You know, kid, there's a lot more to you than you show the outside world, isn't there? Naruto laughed. He said, you just now figured that out? Kurama gave Naruto a raised eyebrow. Would you take the time to get to know someone who has deprived you of your freedom from the moment he was born? Asked the man. Naruto gave that some thought. Good point, was his reply. Kurama let out a sigh. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I kinda wish there was some way I could help you get out of this fix, said the man. After giving it some thought, he continued, well, I guess there is a way. But I don't think either of us would want to take that route. Naruto gave him a look. Well, that would depend on what it was, he replied. Kurama rolled his eyes and sighed once more. If we take that route, the best we can hope for is that your mind would be forever altered, possibly destroyed, he stated. Naruto swallowed. And at worst? He inquired, a little uneasy. A little taken aback that he had even asked that question, the fox arched an eyebrow at the blonde. If we tried to do what I just thought of and something went wrong, you would either lose your mind entirely, or die, he responded, acknowledging that the boy deserved to know what he would be risking if they tried what the fox had thought of. That made Naruto gasp. He questioned, I might lose my mind, or even die. Well, if it did work, what would be the result? And what is your idea, anyway? Kurama took a quick look at Naruto to gauge the boy's level of seriousness. You're serious? Inquired the fox. Naruto gave a resolute nod. Well, the idea I had is that I could pour every ounce of my chakra into you and give you complete control over it so that you could get out of that cage. The only way I could do that is to essentially fuse myself with you. The result would be that you would have total control over every ounce of my power, but I honestly have no idea how having that much power within you would affect your body or mind. Naruto pondered that for a long time. Eventually, he said, all right. Let's do it. I promise I will always use your power in a way that would make you proud, since he really couldn't think of anything else. Kurama laughed and nodded to Naruto. The fox turned around and curled into a ball on the floor. After saying, you'll have to give me a while to prepare. The jutsu I'll have to cast takes a lot of chakra, and I need to get it all together. Naruto took a cross-legged seat and waited. Even though it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, he knew that he had no other option than to exercise patience, so he tried his hardest to do so. Neji panting. Neji leapt away from Gaara. He had no idea how this fight was going to turn out. He had assumed that this foreign genin would be completely helpless against him. How could this boy possibly oppose him, after all, since he was from the most powerful clan in the most powerful of the 5 great nations? Despite this, Neji had failed to strike the redhead once. "What are you?" Neji screamed angrily at the boy. From inside a ball of sand, Gaara gave a manic smile. "I don't even control the sand, you know. It automatically defends me from all attacks. I've never felt pain in my life because of it," said the man. When Neji turned on his Byakugan, he realized the boy wasn't lying. It was obvious that the chakra he was directly controlling was not the same as the one that was in charge of the sand that was protecting him. Then Neji smiled, seeing something else. He said to himself, "So, that's his weakness," and resumed his movement. The clone of Hiruzen the Kazekage was rapidly observing the conflict between the Sand's Jinchuriki and the Hyuga genius. Any minute now, he thought repeatedly. Any minute now, Gaara will change, and the real battle will start. The Kazekage was being closely observed by Hiruzen's shadow clone. He was starting to get the feeling that the man seated next to him was a little off. Neji, Byakugan flaring, eventually slipped one hand through a hole in the sand orb surrounding Gaara and struck the boy's body as they watched. "I'm not sure how he did that, but he's certainly showing there's a good reason the Hyuga consider him a genius," the replica thought. The Kazekage leaned forward and watched in awe as the sand orb suddenly sprouted a giant sand arm, after hearing the cry of pain and rage from inside the orb. At this, Hiruzen's clone arched an eyebrow. That was definitely not what he had anticipated. The sand orb itself fell apart as soon as the arm was removed, exposing Gaara, who was screaming and gripping both sides of his head. But the cage box was suddenly filled with thick, acrid smoke, and this was the last the clone would see of the boy. Taking hold of the Hokage, the Kazekage disappeared from the box and resurfaced on top of a nearby structure. The Hokage questioned the man who was now standing behind him with a kunai to his throat. "What is the meaning of this, Lord Kazekage?" "I'm just trying to start a war, that's all," laughed the Kazekage in response. "I know some people view a windmill as a beautiful thing, but to me, as it stands without motion, such a thing is truly boring. I simply desire to be the force that sets the world into motion." The Hokage responded, "Well, it's really too bad for you, but you won't be given the chance to do that," and then vanished into a smoke cloud. All he really needed to know was that he had heard that voice before. Surprised, the Kazekage turned to face the location where his old teacher had been. He uttered, "Well, Sarutobi Sensei, I didn't think you'd be smart enough to send a shadow clone in your place. Well played, Sensei." Gaara, as soon as he emerged from his orb, Gaara's siblings rushed to his location, seized him, and hurried to get him out of the village as quickly as they could. Once they were outdoors, the redhead abruptly threw them both off him and landed on a tree branch. He immediately started collecting sand for himself, which quickly took the form of a gigantic tanuki, with Gaara himself protruding from the beast's forehead. After putting his hands together, Gaara was just gathering chakra for a jutsu that everyone in the sand village was dreadfully afraid of when he was momentarily distracted by an explosive wave of chakra. The invasion's entire trajectory, and Gaara's life, would be altered by that one moment of distraction. The Hinata for a few minutes, Hinata had to leave Naruto alone. Hinata had had to respond to the call of nature, and she hated to do it, but Kiba had been called away on urgent business to his clan's home. Even though she was only gone for a short while, she still felt as though she was failing the blonde in his hour of need, which felt like a betrayal of him as well as a failure to fulfill her duty because she had been assigned to watch over him. She hadn't had an option, though. Hinata was on her way back to the room when a tremendous wave of chakra slammed her against the wall behind her and knocked her away from Naruto's room door. A moment later, she entered the room to discover Naruto no longer there in a huge hole where his room's far wall had once been. When Hinata activated her Byakugan, she discovered Naruto was racing through the village at unfathomable speeds. Additionally, she noticed that Naruto had changed from his previous self. Hinata made an impossible decision at that very moment. The mindscape of Naruto the fox had curled into a ball for what felt like an eternity, but at last he turned to face the blonde boy who was still outside his cage. "I'm ready now," declared the fox. "Are you ready, Naruto?" Naruto was aware that the fox had altered the way he spoke to his jailer. Naruto answered, "I guess I'm as prepared as I'll ever be. What do I need to do?" "You just have to come up here and remove this seal from between us. I'll do the rest," the fox replied. Naruto glared at the fox and declared, "If you dare to betray me, I will see that you pay for anything you do, even if I have to haunt you to the ends of the earth." Kurama merely gave a nod. Red chakra poured through the gate and raised Naruto to the paper that symbolized the seal. "Okay, but I'll need some help getting up there. After grabbing it and giving the fox another warning look, Naruto tore it off. Biju. Human fusion jutsu, Kurama said, making his hand sign equivalent. The red chakra that was still in contact with Naruto sank into the boy's skin as he spoke, and the rest of the fox followed shortly after. The sheer power he was being forced to control changed his body, causing Naruto to scream in agony. Awake, Naruto. When Naruto awoke from his induced coma, he accidentally released a massive chakra wave. His body needed to release some of it for a brief period of time so that his chakra network could adjust to the pressure because he wasn't used to holding so much. Naruto realized as he looked at himself. The village will never be able to accept me like this, he reflected. He glanced around and saw a black cloak on the bed beside his own. Grabbing it, he tossed it around himself, pulling the hood of the cloak over his head. He was happy to see that it covered his entire body, from head to toe. He pondered, and now to get out of here, he turned and jumped through the wall, leaving the enormous hole that Hinata would discover a few moments later. As Naruto was leaving the hospital, he found a few snakes that resembled the one he had seen in the Forest of Death, as well as a huge sand monster that threatened to attack the village. Before focusing on the snakes surrounding the village walls, the blonde-decked Gaara rushed the sand monster and knocked the sand Jinchuriki unconscious with a single blow after he discovered sticking from its forehead. 3 of the snakes were transformed into a massive bloody mess in a matter of seconds, and the blood was slowly seeping into the ground. When Naruto noticed that Jiraiya and one of his toads were engaged in combat with the 4th and last snake, the blonde Jinchuriki fled northward into the forest, leaving behind the only house he had ever known. The hidden leaf, the phony Kazekage, realized his invasion was a complete failure after witnessing Gaara's metamorphosis and the easy defeat of 3 of his snakes. The man turned and left the village he had once called home, returning to his base, the village he called Hidden Sound, determined to minimize his losses while he could. He didn't even realize that Asuma Sarutobi had taken Kabuto or that he had forgotten his Sound 4. As soon as he was gone, the sand gave way to the leaf. After the Kazecage's actual fate was revealed in a matter of days, the Sand Shinobi were permitted to go back to their hometown and begin the process of grieving for their cage. In the meantime, Gaara had become strangely fixated on the shinobi who had so easily defeated him. Gaara used to say, "I must meet this shinobi," frequently. "I must meet him and ask him what the source of his power is. I must know how it is that anyone could become so powerful as to defeat me so easily." Even his siblings would give Gaara a wide berth whenever he said this because of the expression in his eyes, even though they had also noticed a change in the boy. He appeared more interested than he was obsessed with destroying everything. They tried to persuade him to look for his quarry because they were unsure of how to interpret the change, but it didn't seem like a bad thing anyway. All of this meant that the Sand Trio had not yet made it back to their village. Knowing that the boy was a leaf shinobi, Gaara had made up his mind to start his search there because he was determined to get started as soon as possible. When Kiba returned to Naruto's room, he discovered both Naruto and Hinata gone, along with a large hole in the wall, and Hiruzen had been told that they had both disappeared from the village. He had hurried to inform the Hokage of this after following Hinata's scent to the village wall. "Well, at least Naruto's awake," Hiruzen acknowledged. After giving it some thought, he wrote a message and gave it to Kiba, asking, "But where in the world are they going?" He said to the genin, "Please deliver this to Anko Midarashi." After giving a nod, Kiba went in search of the Eri Proctor. When Naruto finally arrived at a valley with a massive waterfall tumbling between a statue of Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, and a man who must have been Madara Uchiha, he paused to take a brief break. He was standing in the Valley of the End without realizing it. He was sitting on Hashirama's hand to catch his breath when he noticed a second figure standing on top of Madara's. Without hesitation, Naruto stood up and assumed a defensive stance, prepared for battle, but after a moment of searching, he realized it was Hinata. He said, "Hinata, what are you doing here?" "I'm coming with you," Hinata said with assurance. "I won't take no for an answer, so don't bother. If you're leaving the village, there's nothing left there for me, so I have to come with you." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "You don't need to come with me, Hinata," he replied. Hinata remained motionless, staring at Naruto as though he were trying to frighten her away. "And trust me, you're better off staying as far away from me as you can." With the cloak slipping down his arm, Naruto held up a hand in front of himself, exposing slightly sharpened fingernails. They were no longer fingernails, but they also weren't exactly claws. Hinata remained motionless. After a moment of concentration, a chakra sphere materialized above one of Naruto's fingers. The chakra was a strange mix of black, red, and blue. Naruto flicked the orb past Hinata's face after a brief pause, narrowly missing the girl's ear by millimeters. In fact, It was so close that the wind of the thing blowing past Hinata threw up her hair. After the orb struck the statue behind her, there was a brief pause. In the explosion of chakra that followed that moment of complete silence, the Valley of the End started to glow as bright as the midday sun. When Naruto threw the Biju bomb, the top third of the statue of Madara Uchiha was reduced to rubble. Hinata never took her eyes off Naruto. She was unfazed even by the enormous explosion that was occurring just 20 feet behind her. "Do you really want to be around someone who contains a force that powerful?" replied Naruto. "I'm not even sure I can completely control my power anymore." Hinata smiled slightly at Naruto. "Simply put, I'm coming with you, Naruto. Deal with it," she said. A single tear sparkled in Naruto's purple eyes. The thought crossed his mind, "She still wants to come with me," he said. "All right, Hinata," out loud. "Let's go." With that, the two left the valley, continuing to move away from their former village. Although neither of them was completely certain of their destination, they were confident that they would discover it together. Anko in the meantime, Kiba had located Anko and given her the scroll back in the Hidden Leaf village. "Are you aware of the contents of this?" Anko asked Kiba after reading it. Anko handed the scroll to Kiba after he shook his head. Kiba read it and gave Anko a startled look. "He's sending you after them?" Anko laughed. She remarked, "Read it again, brat, he's sending us after them." Kiba went over the scroll once more. It did, in fact, state that Anko was expected to bring him with her when she set out to locate Naruto and Hinata. He pondered. "Well, I guess that does make sense." He turned back to Anko and said, "I am one of the best trackers around, and I already know both of their scents. Is there anything I should bring with me?" he asked. "Just your normal mission gear. I don't think there should be anything too dangerous for us to deal with out there." "When can you be ready to leave?" Anko asked after giving it some thought. Kiba gave a fierce smile. He patted the pouch on his belt and said, "I'm ready now if all I need is my normal mission gear. All my mission gear is in here, and of course Akamaru is always with me." "Okay, kid," Anko replied, secretly pleased with the Genin's level of readiness. "Let's go tell the Hokage we'll take the mission and get out there on the road. We have comrades to find." Looking out over the road that led out of the Hidden Leaf village, Anko and Kiba exchanged a smile. Anko said, "You ready for this, kid?" Kiba laughed. "I was born ready," he replied in response. When the snake charmer said, "All right then. Let's go," and so, bound and determined to find their fellows, the two of them left their house. The fact that this would be the greatest adventure of their lives was unknown to both of them. Naruto let out a sigh. Before the Valley of the End, he had been running at full speed, but now that Hinata was with him, he simply couldn't. She would never be able to keep up if he did. He sighed, and Hinata said, "I apologize for slowing you down, Naruto." Naruto came to a complete halt. Hinata nearly ran into him before he abruptly stopped. He said, "It's okay, Hinata," after a brief pause. "Let's set up camp here." The two genin realized that upon leaving the village, neither of them had actually brought any supplies. "Or not," Naruto finally uttered. Hinata gave a kind smile. After saying, "We'll just have to improvise," she started to jump up into the surrounding trees and pull branches, which she then started to shape into a lean.to. When Naruto saw what she was doing, he immediately joined in. Unfortunately, his new strength would break a branch or his new claws would tear apart a branch for every branch he was able to install without any problems. After noticing that Naruto was growing increasingly irritated, Hinata finally said, "Why don't you see about finding us something to eat, Naruto? I'll finish up here." Naruto grinned. He was fully prepared to let it work even though he knew Hinata was attempting to divert his attention from his frustration at being so ineffective during the camp setup process. After saying, "Yeah, I'm sure I can rustle up something," he disappeared throughout the forest. Naruto quickly realized that his senses had diminished. Actually, they had all been greatly improved, with the exception of his vision. From a mile away, he could smell a bird and hear every single rustle of a leaf. To be honest, it was a little overwhelming. Nevertheless, he quickly discovered a rabbit burrow using his newly acquired senses. He ended up using a chakra arm he could barely control to tear the entire burrow out of the ground in an attempt to flush them out. However, he unintentionally crushed it, as well as the rabbits inside, while trying not to drop it. Cynically, well, so much for them being dinner, he thought. A wild turkey was eventually captured by Naruto without being reduced to mush. He killed it kindly, then took the bird and, as best he could, plucked and skinned it before carrying it back to the campsite. He thought, maybe having these crazy senses isn't all bad, as he constantly knew Hinata's location thanks to his hearing. He could hear the faint noises of her breaking branches and constructing a fire pit as loud as trumpets. When Hinata saw Naruto coming back with the big bird, she grinned. That will feed us for days, she had a cheerful thought. Can you use your chakra to start a fire? She asked Naruto after giving it some thought. Naruto gave this some thought. He remarked, I'm not sure, maybe I can now. He focused his chakra on the stack of sticks where Hinata had constructed their fire pit and held out a hand toward it. They had a joyfully burning campfire shortly after the chakra, in fact, ignited the sticks. Well, that's new, thought Naruto. Hinata gave Naruto's response a little giggle. You'll probably have all kinds of new powers now that you've fused with the fox, she said with poise. Naruto tensed up. His voice was one of unadulterated shock as he asked her, how did you know about that, Hinata? Her gaze was fixed on the turkey as she twirled it over the fire. I saw you leaving the village with my Byakugan, she replied. It can see right through your cloak, so I knew you'd change. I didn't know for sure what had happened, but I guessed it was that. Naruto questioned, and you still followed me? Hinata gave a nod. Why? How can you accept me when you know I really am what the villagers have always thought now? I mean, I am the fox now, really. After turning around, Hinata met Naruto's eyes directly. She could see that they were a swimming mashup of purple, blue, and red in the firelight. This gave Hinata a little chill, but it wasn't a bad feeling. She retorted, you are not the fox, Naruto. Even if you do have every ounce of power the fox had, you aren't him. You're still you, and you always will be. Just as Naruto opened his mouth to reply, a voice inside his head interrupted him. She's right, you know, the voice mentioned. Anko Kiba was a very good tracker, which had pleasantly surprised Anko. Although she was aware that he was an Inuzuka, she didn't anticipate that someone so young would be so skilled at his clan's trade. As they leapt from branch to branch, she inquired, how long have you been doing this, brat? The first thing Kiba said was, ever since I got Akamaru here, about 3 years ago, I've been training to channel chakra to my nose longer than that, but I've been tracking as long as I've had him. Anko remarked, you're very good for one your age. The compliment caused Kiba to blush a little. I do have to wonder how you know what scent to follow, though. Hinata's my teammate. I know her scent anywhere, and I fought Naruto in the preliminaries, so I learned his scent then, he said before stopping. His has changed somehow, but I still recognize it. When the two arrived in the Valley of the End, Anko was still thinking about this. What in the world happened here? Anko and Kiba asked each other in shock and more than a little fear as they looked around at the utter devastation that was in front of them. The Hiruzen 5 of the Jonin came into Hiruzen's office as he was going through some papers. Kurenai Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi, Ibiki Morino, Kakashi Hitaki, and my guy gathered in front of his desk. What can I do for you all? Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at the eclectic group. Nobody was surprised when Guy was the first to answer. He nearly screamed, I am here to inquire after my most youthful student, Rock Lee. His voice was much quieter now. I am also here to ask about that huge pulse of chakra we all felt during the Chunin exam finals, he added. The next to speak was Ibiki. I have prepared a report for you regarding the information I extracted from Kabuto Yukushi, he said with simplicity. And of course I'm also curious about that chakra pulse. Asuma, Hiruzen's son, then added, I came to inquire of you whether any of my students had been promoted to Chunin. He went on to say, and the chakra pulse. Words were never wasted by Asuma. Kurenai was the next to speak. I came to ask you if you've seen my student, Hinata Hyuga, she stated. She appeared to be completely uninterested in the enigmatic chakra pulse, as everyone in the room noted in silence. Kakashi remarked, and I am here about my own students. I understand why Sasuke was disqualified from the finals, but what in the world happened with Naruto? I can't imagine he would just not show up. He stopped and then said, and I too am curious about that pulse. Hiruzen laughed. Well, it seems you're all here about the same thing, in one sense or another. Let me first address your individual concerns before I address the shared one. Guy, I have sent out messenger monkeys to find Tsunade. I am recalling her so that she may work on your student. If anyone can help Lee, she can, he began. Guy nodded, hope shining in his eyes. Ibiki stepped forward and gave the Hokage a stack of papers, saying, unless you have a written copy of it, I'll take your report in regards to Kabuto later, Ibiki. He took out 2 Chunin vests and threw them to the Jonin in question. Okay, that's that then, I'll get to that soon. Yes, Asuma, Shikamaru will be promoted. By the way, Kurenai, your student, Shino, is also being promoted to Chunin. His fight with Konkuro of the Sand showed he is more than ready for this. You may present these to your students whenever you feel the time is right. Kurenai, your concern is inextricably tied into the concern shared by all your fellow Jonin, so I'll get to that in a minute. And Kakashi, your student is the concern shared by all of you. The 5 Jonin appeared astonished at this. What do you mean, Lord Hokage? Kakashi asked after a pause. The third simple response was, well, Naruto was the source of that chakra pulse you all felt. The Hokage told his ninja everything he knew about Naruto's fate, saying, I'm not sure exactly what happened that caused the pulse, but I know it came from Naruto. He paused to give them all time to reflect before continuing, saying, as such, I have sent Kiba and Anko Midarashi to find the two of them. And when he left the village, apparently Hinata followed him. Kiba said he traced both their scents to the wall of the village, and neither of them stopped there. Kakashi was the first to speak. He questioned, why send Anko? Given the direction they were going, I have reason to believe Naruto and Hinata will end up in the land of rice paddies, which is where Orochimaru has his base, if I'm not mistaken. They could run into resistance wielding the curse mark, so having someone there with knowledge of the mark and how to fight against it would be beneficial, Hiruzen replied. All 5 Jonin gave a nod. There, they had to concede their leader's point. Asuma questioned, what should we do? Then, after giving that some thought, Hiruzen turned to face Ibiki. Did you find out anything in regards to Orochimaru or the curse mark from Kabuto? Asked the man. Not really, expressed Ibiki. He told us the location of a couple of the snake's bases, but that's about it. Everything else he told us, we already knew. Hiruzen gave a nod. After a while, he inquired, was one of the bases in the land of rice paddies? Ibiki gave a nod. Kakashi, you will study the location of this base, and then you will depart for there immediately. If you encounter Anko and Kiba or Naruto and Hinata, you will provide any assistance necessary and then attempt to return them all to the village as soon as possible. Go. Kakashi nodded and disappeared into a smoke cloud. Guy nodded and disappeared as well. Guy, you will stay with your student. He needs you more than Naruto or Hinata do. At the antics of the man, Hiruzen grinned. The two nodded and left the office through the door. Asuma, Kurenai, you two have students to bring up to speed on their new circumstances. Once that's done, bring your teams back here, and I'll determine what to have you all do at that time. As for you, Ibiki, explained Hiruzen. Ibiki gave a nod. Give me your full report on the interrogation of Kabuto Yakushi now. Tsunade legendary sucker, Slug Princess, Sanin of the Leaf, and Tsunade were departing the most recent of her gambling dens. Shizune, her helper, was trailing behind her with Tsunade's pet pig, Tauntaun. Shizune begged, oh, Lady Tsunade, let's stop while we still can. If you don't stop losing money like this, you're going to get into some serious trouble. Just as Tsunade opened her mouth to reply, a wet splat was heard. Tsunade noticed a small monkey sitting in a puddle at her feet when she looked down at the ground. He presented her with a scroll. Tsunade took the scroll, read it for a short while, then wrote a reply on it and returned it. The monkey disappeared in a smoke cloud. We've been recalled to the Hidden Leaf Village. It seems my medical expertise is needed, Tsunade said, turning to Shizune. Shizune tried not to show how happy she was to be going back to their long-left house. I thought you swore you'd never go back there, she said. I did, but Sarutobi Sensei just told me that if I don't come back, he'll have no choice but to declare me a rogue ninja. As much as I hate the village, I'm still loyal to it, so I have no choice, really. The two kunoichi then started down the road that would return them to the village. When they arrived, neither of them could have anticipated what they would discover. Jiraiya looking through a busted-out knot in the fence around the bathhouse of some remote village that no one outside the village would even recognize or remember, the notorious perverted toad sage of the Hidden Leaf Village giggled like a schoolgirl. At that moment, he was being treated to a pretty sight. Unfortunately for him, a small monkey slammed into the bathhouse with a loud splat as he watched. The old pervert who had been observing all the women jumped up, screamed, and fled the bath. Thinking, really, Sensei? You had to send a monkey to find me now? Really? The sage backed away from the fence as the monkey jumped over it, letting out a frustrated sigh. Jiraiya was presented with a scroll by the monkey. The white-haired man took it and looked through its contents. It took very little time. It only said, Naruto left. Jiraiya scribbled a quick reply and returned the scroll. Then, as the monkey disappeared in a puff of smoke, he bit his thumb and called forth a big toad. Jiraiya pondered, in retrospect, as the toad sprang into the air and carried him in the direction of the Hidden Leaf Village. I really can't blame Sensei for sending the monkey. This is urgent. Ibiki returned to his office with a sigh. He had spent hours telling the Hokage all he had discovered from Kabuto, and now he was worn out. Regretfully, he returned to his office to discover a substantial pile of fresh documents. He sat down and asked himself, what in the world is this? He turned to the first page and found a fresh report about information that had been unearthed from Kabuto's mind during his meeting with the Hokage. Inoichi Yamanaka signed the report. Ibiki's eyes grew wide as he read the report. When he was done, he practically jumped up. He needed to inform the Hokage of this information right away. Up to 5 of his fellows might be in serious danger if he didn't. Naruto. It was late in the night when Naruto and Hinata woke up, just as Ibiki was running toward the Hokage's office. Given when they had left the village and how far they had run before stopping, that wasn't all that surprising, and it was also to their advantage. Right now, it would be much safer for them to travel at night than during the day. The two disassembled their lean.to and packed it up so that it was portable and could be put back together later. The two left their campsite and proceeded northward, burying the remnants of their fire. They soon emerged from the forest and found themselves in a large clearing. They had never seen the man before, but they knew he was dangerous the moment he stood in the center of that clearing. The man had green eyes, 2 odd red dots on his forehead and shoulder. Length white hair with a peculiar zigzag part down the middle. He was dressed in black knee-length pants, a lavender long, sleeved zip-up shirt, and bandages around his ankles. He had some sort of tube-like hair ornaments wrapped around 2 locks of his silvery hair. But what Naruto noticed most was the big purple bow that was fastened around the man's waist. Naruto dropped into a defensive stance and snarled, "Orochimaru." "Not quite," said the man. "But you're not far off. I am a follower of Lord Orochimaru. And you will go no further toward his home. I am Kimimaro, and I will stop you here." Naruto gave Kimimaro a scowl. He said, "You can't stop us, you know," with irritated flashes in his purple eyes. "I am bound for Orochimaru's village, and I will take him down for doing this to me." Kimimaro remained silent. Rather, he extended his hand, and to the surprise of Naruto and Hinata, a bone emerged from his palm and shaped itself into a sword. The man then wrapped his hand around the sword and assumed a defensive position. "That, I cannot permit. I will lay down my life so that Lord Orochimaru may live," he said with simplicity. The man then shifted. The blonde formed a tailed beast bomb with one hand as Kimimaro charged at Naruto. But to Kimimaro's surprise, Naruto flicked it off in an apparently random direction instead of hurling it at the man in front of him. The resulting explosion was, to put it mildly, impressive. With bewildered eyes and a confused voice, Kimimaro questioned, "Why did you do that?" Naruto gave a fierce smile. "Oh, sorry about that. I just had to swat a bothersome fly," he responded. Kimimaro dismissed that as some strange insanity his adversary was going through and charged once more. He swung his sword quickly and forcefully. But to his surprise, the sword broke when it struck his opponent's cloak. Kimimaro stared in disbelief at the sword's hilt, which was still in his grasp. After some time, he said, "That's impossible." "I told you," said Naruto. "You can't stop us." At this moment, Hinata approached Naruto and whispered something to him. Kimimaro chose to wait and see what would happen even though he couldn't hear what she was saying. Naruto approached Kimimaro and extended his hand. With hesitation, Kimimaro approached Naruto and touched his fingertip. Red chakra suddenly poured into Kimimaro's body from the blonde. The man felt the chakra surge through him and start to fix him, much to his surprise. Once hardly able to move at all, his body was now, well, not exactly healthy, but better than it had been. Kimimaro gave his opponent a startled look. He paused and asked, "Why would you do this?" Naruto gave a shrug. "Hinata told me your body was falling apart and you must be in excruciating pain. Living that way can't have been enjoyable at all, and she realized you were probably going to die soon, so I decided to give you a bit more time, at least. Life is precious, and I couldn't just stand here and watch yours expire," he continued after a while. After giving this some thought, Kimimaro questioned, "Then what was that attack before about?" Naruto laughed. "That was just me taking down the 4 people who had been commanded to capture, corrupt, kill, and torment my best friend," he responded. After a moment of hesitation, Kimimaro said, "You mean, you killed my comrades with that attack?" Naruto nodded, anticipating the man's next move. After giving it some thought, he formally declared, "You have killed the Sound 4, and bested me. By the traditions of my home, I will now follow you, wherever you may lead. I plan to lead you to the Sound Village, where we will attack Orochimaru and destroy him and everything he stands for. He is to blame for me being who and what I am now, and his life is forfeit for it. If you are okay with that, you are welcome to join us," Naruto yelled. Kimimaro paused and thought about this. "I suppose I have no choice. However, know this, I will not fight against Lord Orochimaru. I will not hinder you, and if you need it, I will help you with any information I have," but I will not take up arms against him. I can't, he replied. Naruto gave a nod. By the way, I'm Naruto, he said, laughing at the irony of introducing himself to a man who had attempted to kill him. That's understandable. You won't regret this, Kimimaro. Kiba and Anko and Kiba heard a massive explosion nearby, and Anko gasped. Kiba posed a rhetorical question, what in the hell was that? After a brief pause, Anko said, I'm not sure, and approached the location of the sound. But we're going to find out. Something tells me we're going to find something very interesting where that explosion just happened. After Kiba gave a nod, the two started in the direction of the noise they had heard. Akamaru let out a whine. Kiba said, what is it, boy? Akamaru responded with a bark. Kiba said, Anko, we need to be very careful, after he had had time to process Akamaru's words. Anko gazed at him, her eyes full of questions. Akamaru can smell chakra, and he just told me that whatever caused that explosion, the chakra involved made the chakra Gaara held within him look like nothing. Anko's brows went up without thinking. After a moment, she said, really now? They proceeded until they came to a small clearing in the woods. In that case, I agree, we need to be careful. I don't think we'll find anything dangerous up ahead, but still, better safe than sorry. Or what was left of it, actually. The broken tent stakes, tarps, and other items they discovered strewn about clearly indicated that this had been used as a campsite of some kind. Additionally, they discovered what appeared to be the remains of 4 or possibly 5 bodies. Kiba remarked, I smell 4 scents here. Then he stopped. Well, 5, actually, but 2 of them are so similar it's hard to tell them apart at all. What in the world happened here? But when Anko had stepped into the clearing, he had frozen. This kind of devastation was nothing new to her. She was able to choke out, Kyubi. Kiba stared at her in disbelief. Kyubi, what do you mean? This is just like the destruction we saw in the village when the fox attacked us. This is almost identical to the aftermath of one of his Biju bomb attacks. It seems to be on a slightly smaller scale, but it's otherwise identical. Kiba thought about this and shuddered a little. In a minute, he said, do you think Naruto gave in? For this, Anko had no response. Kiba nodded, and the two started closely examining the bodies in the clearing after a few more minutes of this. Anko finally collected herself and said, let's examine these bodies. Maybe there's some clue as to what happened here. And why? Anko had examined each one after a few minutes and discovered something unsettling. They all had curse marks, she uttered, silently. Kiba turned and gave her a look. He inquired, what's a curse mark? It's a forbidden jutsu Orochimaru developed. It pumps dark chakra into the victim, giving them a massive boost in strength, speed, reflexes, and jutsu power. But it comes at a horrible cost. Using the curse mark tears apart the body of the user, Anko replied in a voice full of venom. After giving that some thought, Kiba posed the obvious query, how do you know all that? With a sigh, Anko gestured for Kiba to approach. When he did, Anko lowered herself to her haunches and pushed her shirt collar away, exposing a mark on the side of her neck. Her words, this is my curse mark. Kiba let out a gasp. He said, he marked you? After a moment, she responded sourly, I was the guinea pig for this jutsu. It didn't work quite the way he intended it to on me, so he cast me aside like so much trash. Kiba put a hand on her arm and reached up. It's okay, I get it, he reassured her. He'll pay for what he's done, you have my word. Anko gave the genin a small smile. She remarked, thanks, kid, now come on, let's get back on Naruto and Hinata's trail. There's nothing more we can do here. After Kiba gave his approval, the two resumed their detour on the trail. A third scent joined them as they followed the two to a sizable clearing. Muttered, that's interesting, Kiba said. Anko gave him a raised eyebrow. The way those others with the curse mark smelled. This new scent smells like that. Akamaru says he's incredibly powerful, too, but I can tell whoever they met here has a curse mark. Anko let out a sigh. Bitterly, she questioned, so many of his experiments. Are we fated to see them all? Without having to ask, Kiba could tell that she would have preferred to never have mentioned or seen her former sensei again. Kiba growled. Even though he had no personal connection to Orochimaru or any of his experiments, he was sufficiently enraged with him because he could see the suffering the man was causing his comrade. Naruto and associates. Kimimaro had led Naruto and Hinata to a mostly underground base. He said, this is it, to them. Lord Orochimaru is in here. This is the village hidden in the sound. Naruto growled. Let's go get him. Beside him, Hinata moved up, Byakugan in motion. She pointed off to her left and said, there's an entrance just over there, it leads to a series of tunnels. one of which leads almost directly to what looks like a throne room, and I can see Orochimaru's chakra in that room. Naruto put a hand on Hinata's arm and nodded, being cautious not to stab her with his not quite claws. He said earnestly, "I'm glad you came with me, Hinata." The two turned and headed toward the entrance, Hinata blushing but continuing to wear her Byakugan. Kimimaro fell slightly behind them. "I won't stand in your way," he told them, "but I still refuse to take up arms against my liege. Lord Orochimaru saved me from the most horrible things I have ever seen, and I cannot betray him like that." Naruto replied, "We know, Kimimaro. We wouldn't ask you to do that anyway. Besides, you've seen how powerful I am. Do you really think I'll need your help to take him down?" With a straightforward reply, Kimimaro said, "Not so long as you avoid his grass longsword, no." Naruto turned to face his friend. "What do you mean?" Kimimaro retorted, "The grass longsword can cut through anything. I'm fairly certain it would even pierce your chakra cloak. You would be wise not to underestimate it." "Where does he keep it? I've encountered Orochimaru before, and he didn't have a sword on him then," Naruto said after nodding. "There's a snake he keeps within his body that acts as the sheath for the grass longsword," replied Kimimaro. After all, he had promised them information. That made Naruto shudder, but he took a moment to think about what he had been told. "I'm guessing it's a summon. And that if I take him out with it still in there, the snake will keep it and it'll be lost to us." Kimimaro thought about it. "Yes, that's probably true. Why?" "Well, a sword that can cut through anything would almost certainly be useful, wouldn't you agree, Hinata?" replied Naruto. "Most certainly so," she answered. "But I have to wonder the same thing Kimimaro does, I'm sure." "What are you getting at, Naruto?" "I'm going to make sure he draws that sword, so that when I take him down, it isn't lost." "We're going to take that sword from him," Naruto replied with a growl. Hinata gave a small smile. She remarked, "That's a good idea, Naruto," as the three approached a doorway that appeared to lead to a large room beyond. "Is this it?" inquired Naruto. Hinata gave a nod. Before they could react, he turned and left through the doorway. "You two wait here. I'd rather you not get caught up in the crossfire," he said. Jiraiya with a heavy sigh, Jiraiya entered his former hometown. It's been too long, he contemplated. And yet, this place already seems a little less bright now that Naruto isn't here. As he moved through the streets, he received glares of disgust from most women and looks of respect from most men. Ignoring both, he headed for the Hokage Tower. When he arrived, he leapt to his feet and entered his former teacher's office through the window. He said, "Sarutobi. Sensei, greeting." The elderly man replied, "Ah, Jiraiya," while smoking his pipe. He gestured to the other people in the room, who were Tsunade, Shizune, and Taunton, and said, "It's about time you got here." Jiraiya grinned at his former teammate, who merely glared at him. Tsunade remarked, "We've been waiting for you," with a hint of sourness directed at their former instructor. She said, "Sarutobi. Sensei has gotten so old he can't even explain things twice, so we had to wait for you." However, the majority of the venom in her voice was directed at Jiraiya. Naturally patient was not one of Tsunade's many attributes. Jiraiya let out a sigh. He remarked, "You haven't changed, Tsunade, although I must say you look even more fetching now than you did the last time I saw you." Tsunade gave him a fierce look. "I look exactly the same now as I did then, I'll have you know," she replied angrily. "Maybe so, but there is something different. Maybe it's the look in your eyes, but whatever it is, you're even more beautiful now than you were before." Jiraiya laughed out loud. With a sigh, Tsunade turned back to their former instructor. "All right, Sarutobi. Sensei, we're both here, now what the hell do you want?" "Well, first off, I have news about your godson, Jiraiya," he replied. Naruto by himself. Naruto took in his surroundings and the room he was now in. It took him a few moments, but finally he looked at the only person in the room besides himself. "Orochimaru," he growled. Then Orochimaru laughed. He said, "So, you found me, Naruto? I'm surprised you managed to get out of that seal. I didn't think you would ever cooperate with the fox. Guess I underestimated you, after all." Naruto let out a barking laugh that, to him, sounded a bit too similar to the fox's laughter. "Yes, you underestimated me," he responded. "A lot of people have made that mistake before. And in your case, it will be the last mistake you ever make." Orochimaru laughed once more. He said, "You can't kill me, I cast the immortality jutsu on myself long ago. I can't die. That jutsu only protects the user from dying of old age, it doesn't prevent death by any other means." "He's trying to psyche you out," said Naruto, hearing a laugh in the back of his mind. "Good try," said Naruto. "But I know that jutsu only prolongs your life and keeps you from dying from age. it doesn't make you immune from harm. Orochimaru appeared astonished. Indeed, he was. He hadn't anticipated that a genin of some rank would even be aware of the immortality jutsu, much less understand how it operated. He wasn't going to let a small surprise hold him down for long, though. Very good, he remarked with laughter. I'm surprised you've even heard of a forbidden jutsu like that. Naruto replied with a laugh. One of the very first jutsu I ever learned was a forbidden one, he stated. You really need to stop underestimating me. After giving this some thought, Orochimaru concluded that he ought to at least give the child some credit. He had, after all, broken a seal that was meant to be impenetrable. Although Orochimaru was still unsure of the child's exact method, he reasoned that it at least demonstrated the child's effort. He said to Naruto, "All right, if you insist," and then he looked up. A snake eventually emerged from his mouth, opening its own mouth in the process. Orochimaru extracted a longsword from the snake's mouth. Naruto pondered, "So, that's the grass longsword." He smiled and let Orochimaru swallow the snake again before continuing, "Perfect." As he shut his mouth, Orochimaru turned back to face the intruder. To his surprise, the boy approached him at breakneck speed without pausing. As the boy got to him, he extended a hand that instantly developed a massive chakra claw, striking Orochimaru square in the middle. The man's legs just tipped over, and his upper body flew apart. Naruto let out a sigh. "Simply, that was too easy," he said. Then he heard the reptilian bastard laughing, which surprised him. He turned to see that Orochimaru's body was being split in two, with snakes growing out of each half. The snakes grabbed hold of each other and pulled Orochimaru's body back together. With a laugh, Orochimaru said, "You really shouldn't underestimate me, either." Naruto smiled. He thought to himself, "Good. This is going to be fun, after all," and launched another attack on the snake man. The Hinata repeatedly witnessed Naruto's vicious attacks on Orochimaru. Hinata wasn't sure, but the reptilian man hardly ever bothered to avoid Naruto's attacks. In any case, Orochimaru suffered multiple amputations, ripped off his arms and legs, and even had his head ripped from his shoulders a few times. Every time this occurred, the different parts of his body would simply grow snakes and reattach themselves to one another, so nothing seemed to bother him. After a while, Hinata noticed something startling. Naruto had a smile on his face. He was enjoying himself. Seeing her crush genuinely having fun while tearing his opponent's limbs off was a little unsettling. She shivered, but then she remembered Naruto's fate at the hands of this man. She thought about this and came to the realization that she didn't care what Naruto did to the man. He was deserving of all of it and more. After a while, she smiled a little and uttered the words, "Kick his ass, Naruto." Naruto was growing disinterested in this battle. This man had been repeatedly torn apart by him, yet he continued to put himself back together. The man had thrown up after one particularly vicious round of attacks. It resembled an old snake shedding its skin. Naruto got the creeps from it. I hope he can only do that once, Naruto had pondered. As long as he was alive, he did not want to witness that again. Nevertheless, Naruto had realized that he had no idea how to permanently defeat Orochimaru because this battle had lasted too long. The voice in his head resurfaced as he pondered this dilemma. If taking him apart on the visible level isn't working, why not take him apart on the cellular level? It inquired. After giving this some thought, Naruto responded to the voice by asking, "Can the Biju bomb do that?" In response, the voice said, "You underestimate the Biju bomb. That's only scratching the surface of what it can do." It then laughed darkly. Naruto gave a gloomy smile. After hearing what the boy had to say, Orochimaru asked inquisitively, "Can a Biju bomb do what, exactly?" Naruto grinned. After replying, "You'll see soon enough," he resumed his approach to the snake man. This time, Naruto used his left arm to attack the man as he approached, but the man actually ducked. Naruto wasn't totally surprised because he did this sometimes. Naruto continued to attack while carefully concealing his right arm. Orochimaru was taking care to avoid getting struck at this point. Although he had no idea what was happening, he also didn't believe he wanted to know what the child in front of him had planned. After backing Orochimaru into a corner, Naruto's left hand's chakra claw eventually caught the man by the waist. Naruto drew him closer and met the reptilian's eyes directly. Orochimaru made an unsuccessful attempt to wriggle out of the chakra arm. The hold was too strong and too tight. He was getting shivers just staring into those blue, purple, and red eyes. It was simply incorrect. He started to say something, but Naruto spoke before him. "Little trivia for you." Naruto grinned gloomily. Naruto drew out his long, hidden right hand, which was holding a swimming mass of blue, red, and black chakra, and said, "Foxes eat snakes." Before Orochimaru could say anything, Naruto thrust the mass of chakra down the man's throat and into his open mouth. Then, with haste, Naruto let go of the man and retreated. Naruto watched from the other side of the room as the Biju bomb did its job, tearing the man apart from the inside out and causing a massive chakra explosion. Naruto walked to the spot where the man had been and used all of his senses to survey the area. The reptilian bastard was completely gone. For want of a better term, he had been disintegrated. Naruto turned around and yelled, "You two can come in now, it's safe." Kimimaro and Hinata dutifully came into the room. Deactivating her Byakugan, Hinata rushed to Naruto and gave him a waist hug. Her words, "I was so worried, when he kept putting himself back together, I didn't think you'd be able to take him down. What in the world made you think to feed him a Biju bomb like that?" Naruto laughed. When he said, "I'll tell you later," Naruto looked around the room and saw only one spot to sit, so he did so without thinking about what he was doing. "For now, I need to rest." Without hesitation, Kimimaro bowed down. Naruto questioned, "What are you doing, Kimimaro?" When he said, "You sit upon the throne of the Sound Village, you have defeated our leader and claimed his throne for your own. You are now the de facto leader of the village hidden in the Sound." Naruto gave Kimimaro a startled look. He said, "I'm now the leader?" Kimimaro gave a nod. A smile finally appeared on Naruto's face. "It may not be Hokage, but I can deal with this," he replied. "But we have got to change that name. I said we were going to destroy everything Orochimaru stood for, and the name of this village is part of that." After giving this some thought, Hinata murmured, "I always saw you as being like the sun, Naruto." Naruto gazed at her with inquiries in his eyes. "Maybe you should name the village after that." Naruto grinned. "Yes, I think I shall. I like that idea." "Thank you, Hinata," he replied. "Welcome, one and all, to the newly named village hidden in the sun, also known as Taiyogakure. And I, Naruto Uzumaki, do hereby declare myself the first Taiyokage," he exclaimed, turning to face the entire room. As he got closer to what he had been told would be the hidden Sound Village, Sasuke took a look around. He was unsure of what he had anticipated, but this was not it. After discovering the somewhat obscure entrance, after all, who installed a door in a hillside? He had been exploring the underground facility for the past hour. It looked like it had been abandoned. Finding an underground maze of deserted rooms and questionable medical equipment was the last thing the dark-haired boy had anticipated, out of all the things he had anticipated. He nearly missed the largest door he had ever seen because of his diversion. In fact, he nearly walked right by it. He noticed the door was at least 20 feet high when he looked up. Nevertheless, he knew this was it as soon as he saw this absurd door. On the other side of this door was something significant. He pushed on the door, unsure of what to anticipate. It opened easily, as if it weighed nothing at all, which surprised him a little. He was startled to see that it appeared to be made of solid metal and was at least a foot thick when viewed from the side. He could not understand how something so tall and thick could open so readily. It was completely nonsensical, like everything else here. Sasuke looked away from that captivating door and into a vast, empty space. At first glance, he thought it was at least as large as the Chunin exam arena. A bare stone throne stood directly before him on the far wall from the door he had just entered. A rather diminutive figure, barely taller than Sasuke, wore a black cloak and sat on that throne. Sasuke had no idea how to interpret this. He questioned haughtily, "Who are you? I thought Orochimaru led this place." "Half." Growling back, a deep voice said, "He did, until I killed him." This is where Sasuke began. "You killed Orochimaru? I doubt that very much." And the voice boomed back, "You think not? Well, step forward and I will give you a taste of the power that ended the snake." In a single second, Sasuke moved forward, dropped into a battle stance, pulled out a kunai, and triggered his Sharingan. "Bring it on," he grinned and said. He was looking forward to a good fight after a long, dull trip, but he wasn't sure if he believed this person's claim to have killed the snake ninja. To Sasuke's surprise, the figure appeared to disappear and then reappeared in front of him so quickly that his Sharingan was unable to keep up. A massive kick had been slammed into his chest, sending him flying backwards before he could even try to block. Sasuke confirmed to himself that the door was indeed composed of solid metal as he crashed into it with a sickening thwack. After landing on his feet, he was severely shaken and in excruciating pain. Sasuke looked around, but he couldn't even tell where the figure had disappeared to. He felt pressure on his legs just as he was about to call out to whoever this was. He caught a glimpse of the figure snatching him by the legs as he looked down. Was the person wearing the cloak a child? This person wrapped claw-like fingers around Sasuke's leg, lifted him as if he weighed nothing, and threw him across the room. landing him squarely in the throne this time. Sasuke wasn't sure, but he seemed too short to be an adult. The figure appeared right in front of Sasuke, a tiny ball of chakra inches from his face before he could even attempt to catch his breath. The voice growled, "You would have died if I hadn't stopped. I fed one of these to the snake, and, well, no more snake." Sasuke shuddered at the sadistic humor used in this final statement. Sasuke thought about what he had witnessed. That chakra orb was crazily dense. In fact, there was a chance that this might have destroyed Orochimaru. And this individual was so incredibly quick that he began to believe what whoever it was had said. He told himself, "I need this power. With this power, I could take down Itachi. It wouldn't even be hard with that." The cloaked figure appeared to be waiting for Sasuke to say or do something, as it had turned away from him and was now standing a few feet away from the throne. Sasuke folded his hands before him, shifted on the throne to a more comfortable position, and spoke. He remarked, "I need this power you have. I don't know what it is, but I need it. I need it to avenge my clan." The figure stiffened, then inhaled deeply. It uttered a single word and seemed to relax a little. "No." Sasuke scowled at the back of the figure. "You will give me your power, or I will find a way to take it for myself," he snapped back, snarling. At that moment, the figure did something that sent shivers down Sasuke's spine and left him completely stunned. The long, deep belly laughs that the figure let out were utterly terrifying. The laughter was a sinister, malevolent sound. If the sound was any indication, the figure was the kind that would laugh in such a manner while consuming infant souls. "What's so funny?" Sasuke growled as he regained his composure. The voice this time was almost familiar, and the figure paused his laughter before saying, "What's so funny is you seem to think you can take this power. It's too much, even for you, Sasuke. This power would kill you in an instant if you tried to take it from me." Sasuke had thought he almost recognized the voice the entire time, but he was unable to determine why, and this time it was even more obvious. Sasuke inquired, "What do you mean by that? No power could be that much." "You think not?" said the figure. The figure threw off the cloak and turned to face Sasuke. "This is what the power did to me." Sasuke fixed his gaze on the now exposed individual. Naruto was there, however, it wasn't either. It appeared that Naruto had grown a good 6 inches. His nails were sharper and his fingers longer. They had more claws than fingernails, but they weren't quite claws. At the tips of his crazy spikes, his once blonde hair turned orange and then red. The hair itself had grown wilder and more spiky. Naruto's facial whisker marks now appeared to be, no, they didn't appear to be, actual whiskers. Naruto's face had become a little more muzzle. Like to account for this. He didn't have a muzzle in the traditional sense, but his face had grown more angular and garish. Sasuke witnessed what might have been the most startling thing of all as Naruto finished his spin. The back of Naruto's head was sprouting a freaking foxtail. Sasuke initially believed it to be merely a portion of the blonde's hair, but upon closer inspection, he saw that a tail was growing straight out of the boy's head and protruding from the hair. With the multicolored hair and everything, it didn't stand out very much, but it was there. Sasuke couldn't pinpoint the reason behind his suspicion that Naruto wasn't truly controlling the tail, but something about the way it moved gave him that impression. Naruto exclaimed, "This is what this power did to me." Hearing that deep, dark voice from the hyperactive blonde he knew so well still felt a little strange. Naruto continued, gazing into Sasuke's eyes, "Your body couldn't handle changing this much. Trust me, Sasuke. I only survived because of my healing ability." Sasuke returned his gaze to Naruto's eyes. It was really challenging. The boy's eyes were extremely unsettling in their swimming blue red, purple color. After a moment, Sasuke was able to ask the most important question of all. WH. What are you?" Naruto let out a sigh. "I am still me," he responded accordingly. "I got trapped in a seal by Orochimaru, and the only way for me to get out of it was to fuse myself with the nine-tailed fox. I guess, you could say I'm a half demon now, but I'm still me." Sasuke turned to face his Sharingan wielding companion. Indeed, Naruto was telling the truth, he discovered. Like his eyes, Naruto's chakra was now blue, red, and purple, but at his core, he was still Naruto. Like everything else about him, he was different but the same. At that moment, Sasuke realized that he would likely need years to come to terms with the contradiction of that. But the important thing was that Naruto remained Naruto. "So, what happened here? I mean, this is the Sound Village, right?" Sasuke asked, surveying the room. Naruto chuckled a little. "Well, it was," he interrupted. "It's the Hidden Sun Village now. After I killed Orochimaru, I was made the leader of this place, so I renamed it Hidden Sun. I am the Shodai Taiyokage now. Sasuke laughed. If nothing else, he had to acknowledge to himself that this was the best name Naruto could have picked. Suddenly, Sasuke heard a voice behind the throne. It said, "Is it all right now, Naruto?" Naruto gave a small laugh. "Yeah, it's fine, you two can come out." Two figures appeared behind the throne, surprising Sasuke. One was a boy he had never seen before, and the other was Hinata Hyuga. However, he did recognize the boy's attire. It was the same one that Orochimaru had worn, down to the absurd purple rope belt that was tied in a bow. Hinata was the one who spoke. Hinata positioned herself beside Naruto and clasped his arm, turning in front of Sasuke. Sasuke's attention was on the other individual. "Who are you?" "I am Kimimaro," responded the boy. "I was Orochimaru's favorite until our new leader came here and defeated him. Now, I am Lord Taiyukage's personal guard." After giving this some thought, Sasuke questioned, "And what are you doing here, Hinata? I doubt very much your clan allowed you to be here." Hinata gave a headshake. "No, they didn't. They don't know I'm here," she responded. "But the work I'm doing here with Naruto is far more important than anything I was doing back in the Leaf Village. Speaking of which, I'm glad you're here, Sasuke. You got a curse mark from Orochimaru before he died, didn't you?" With a nod, Sasuke pulled his shirt up to reveal it. His words were, "Right here," indicating it. "Why?" After giving it a quick glance and using her Byakugan, Hinata smiled. "Excellent. It hasn't been activated yet. Sasuke, if you will allow me, I would like to study your curse mark. It may be the best chance we have." Sasuke's eyebrow went up. He inquired, "Best chance you have of what?" To which Hinata replied, "Of figuring out how to get rid of them. We've found out from the people here that the curse mark destroys the bodies of those who have them and use them. We can't let them stay on these innocent people." Sasuke thought about it. After glancing at Naruto, he exclaimed, "Sure, you can study it. I want power and all, but I think the costs might not be worth it. If the costs of this power are anything like that, I don't freaking want it," he said out loud to Hinata. If it was possible, Hinata's smile widened. "Good," she said. Sasuke just nodded in agreement. "I'm glad you're on our side in this, Sasuke. I think your Sharingan might be able to help us out with it, too." Naruto gave his old friend a smile. "I'm glad you're not going to fight us, Sasuke," he replied. "I was worried you might only see the power and not care about the costs." Sasuke laughed. "Even I know when the price you pay isn't worth it," he stated. At this, Naruto smiled and flashed his long canine teeth. Sasuke shuddered. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but you are freaking creepy." Naruto chuckled. "I know," he replied. Sasuke acknowledged Naruto's point and nodded when he asked, "Why do you think I left the village?" "I'm glad you two are here and don't hate me for this, at least," said Naruto. Sasuke laughed. "I can see what you said about still being you is true. I imagine Hinata can, too," he replied. Hinata gave a nod of agreement. With a cunning smile, he added, "Besides, if I didn't stick around, I'd never get the chance to beat you. Even if I can't have your power, I will get strong enough so that I won't need it." "Fat chance of that," replied Naruto. "You may not realize it, but I was holding back before." To Sasuke's surprise, Naruto wasn't kidding. He asked himself, just how powerful is he now? The sound of the throne room door opening behind them startled the four ninja, who turned and assumed ready stances. Even as he used his own dojutsu, Sasuke noticed that Hinata's Byakugan was in use. Two individuals that none of the former Leaf Genin had anticipated seeing in this location came through the door of the throne room. As she and Kiba entered the room, Anko exclaimed, "Damn it, pup, where the hell are we going?" Kiba gestured in front of them. "Right here," he replied, grinning arrogantly. "I told you Akamaru and I could follow a scent anywhere." Anko sighed as he looked up and saw the four ninja in front of them. After saying, "All right, I admit it, you were right. You found them." She gave Kiba a little bundle of cash. "And what in the hell are you three doing here?" she asked, turning to face the four. She didn't think highly of Kimimaro because of his blatantly sound village attire. After a moment, Naruto recognized Anko and became a little more at ease. He said, "Oh, okay, it's you," and then, "Hi, Kiba." Kiba gave Naruto a startled look. "Oh, so that's why your scent was different," he replied. He turned to Anko and asked, "What do we do now?" With a shrug. Anko gave a sadistic smile. "We drag them back by their ears if we have to," she responded. At this, Kimimaro moved forward. He said, "You will do no such thing," and shifted into a defensive position. "Lord Taiyokage will be going nowhere unless he wants to." "Kimimaro!" exclaimed Naruto. "Stand down." Although Kimimaro retreated, he remained vigilant. Anko gave Naruto a startled look. Taiyokage? She had inquired. Naruto laughed. Yeah, I renamed this place after killing off Orochimaru, he said, and since I'm the leader now, I'm the Taiyokage. Anko gazed in disbelief. She exclaimed, You killed Orochimaru? Before passing out. XXXXXX. After the Jonin woke up, Naruto and Hinata had to spend some time catching Anko and Kiba up. They were now, and Anko had a crucial question. You said you're trying to find a way to remove curse marks. Have you had any luck? Hinata let out a sigh. Not really, but with Sasuke here now, I can finally study one that's not active. Why do you ask? Anko revealed her own curse mark by slightly pulling back her top. Hinata gave a sympathetic nod. According to Anko, mine was the prototype. It's not exactly the same, but I hope you'll let me know if you figure out a way to get rid of them. Hinata's Byakugan came to life. Upon closely examining Anko's mark, she remarked, You're right, it's not exactly the same. In fact, I think studying yours and Sasuke's both might help me figure out what we need to do to get rid of them. Anko was unable to recall the last time she had been so thrilled to hear anything. You can study it as much as you need to, she replied. I'll do anything to get rid of this damn thing. There's only one problem, shot back Hinata. I know Sasuke was leaving the village anyway, but are you going to do that, too? I need you two to be here to study the marks and try some things to get rid of them. Anko thought about it. I wasn't planning on it, but I might have an idea of how I can make this whole thing work, she responded. She took out a scroll, wrote something on it, and gave it to Kiba. Kiba nodded and accepted the scroll, carefully putting it in his pocket. Kiba, your mission is now to return this to the Leaf Village. Deliver it directly to the third Hokage. No one else, got it? He asked. He didn't try to get out. Go. Now? Anko exclaimed with a hint of irritation. Kiba turned to go after nodding. In Hinata's words, see you around, Kiba, she and Naruto both waved back when Kiba waved at them. The wild genin and his white puppy vanished after that. The scroll I just sent explained the situation to the Hokage, Anko replied. With a nod of gratitude, Naruto said, I left out the stuff about you and the fox, Naruto. Stating, I also requested that I be assigned as the envoy to the newly formed Hidden Sun Village, effective immediately. As long as he doesn't deny it, that should give me all the time we need for you to study this damn mark. Naruto grinned. And it's a good first step to a true alliance between us and the Leaf, he continued. Then he rambled, I really don't want to be caught up in a war with my home. Anko approached the youngster and put a hand on his shoulder. Her smile was slight. Don't worry, I don't think the third would start a war, especially not with you, she said. Naruto returned the smile. Sincerely, thanks, Anko, he said. Everyone who heard it, with the possible exception of Hinata, still found his deep voice a little unsettling, but they were beginning to adjust. Naruto reflected to himself, it's nice to have friends who don't care how you look or sound. He didn't realize at the time how much he would need those friends or how much they would mean to him in the future. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, sighed deeply as he read the scroll that Kiba Inuzuka had brought him from Enko Midarashi. He was having a terrible time trying to figure out what the hell had happened. Enko's message claimed that Naruto had killed Orochimaru, but it didn't explain how. It also claimed that Naruto had changed the name of the Sound Village to the Sun Village, but it didn't explain how he got rid of it. Finally, it asked that Anko be moved to serve as an envoy between the Hidden Leaf Village and the Hidden Sun Village. Something had undoubtedly happened that he wasn't being told about here, and the Hokage was able to read between the lines. Something happened that this message has left out. What happened? He asked, turning to face Kiba, who was still waiting in his office. The Hokage was right when Kiba tensed up. Kiba responded, Naruto. Changed, after a brief pause. Hiruzen took his pipe out and filled it. I assume this has something to do with the fox? He said, lighting it and puffing on his pipe as he observed Kiba's response. The Hokage's remark caused Kiba to leap almost a foot into the air. He hadn't anticipated that the Hokage would pick things up so quickly. Sighing, Kiba replied, yeah, it does. He says he was trapped in a seal by Orochimaru, and to get out of it, he had to fuse himself with the fox. At that realization, Hiruzen did everything he could to keep his pipe in place. Although he was aware that something was wrong, he hadn't anticipated it to be that. So, Naruto's not really himself anymore, huh? He inquired. Kiba nodded and shuddered, recalling how Naruto had changed. The Hokage nodded, understanding that Naruto had left because he believed the village would never accept him in his current form. After a moment, Hiruzen asked, what does he look like now? After shivering, Kiba briefly described Naruto's not quite human form to the Hokage. He spoke of the blonde's tail on the back of his head, The fingernails that weren't quite claws, the boy's hair's crazy colors, and the lengthened teeth and face. He continued, and the creepiest thing is his eyes. They're not blue like they used to be. They're like a swimming mess of red, blue, and purple. I've never seen eyes like that before, and looking at them gave me chills. Hiruzen let out another long sigh. This was, to put it mildly, shocking. Nevertheless, Sasuke, Anko, Hinata, whom Kiba had also mentioned, and Naruto were Leaf Shinobi. No matter how different Naruto was now, he couldn't just let them build a new village. He would not place a value on the boy's head or anything, but he knew he had to return his shinobi to the village as soon as possible. He could easily understand why Naruto had left. After giving it some thought while gazing up at Kiba, Hiruzen took out a scroll and started writing. As the elderly man wrote, Kiba waited. Hiruzen eventually gave Kiba the scroll. Return to the Hidden Sun Village with this, he stated. Give it to Naruto or Anko, it doesn't matter which. You may read it if you like. Return after they have read it. Kiba left after giving a salute. Then he inhaled deeply and asked himself, is this mission ever going to end? XXXXXX Hinata smiled. She was fairly certain that she had it. She had discovered the curse mark's mechanism. It was a seal, the mark. It used the victim's chakra network to sustain itself and to grant the victim power. According to Hinata's theory, the seal should shatter and the mark would be removed if the relevant chakra points were closed. She was aware that the victim would experience excruciating pain, but that it would ultimately be worthwhile if the mark were removed. She said, I want to try something, Sasuke. I think I can remove your mark. If this doesn't work, at worst, you'll just have some closed-off chakra points for a moment, and I can undo that easily enough. She turned to face Sasuke, whose mark she was now examining. Sasuke inhaled deeply. He was aware of the excruciating pain of having his chakra points closed. Although he had heard tales of it, he had never personally experienced it. He gave a nod. Do it, was all he said. Hinata's Byakugan came to life. She hit Sasuke's shoulder after concentrating chakra in her fingertips. Around the mark there, she made a circle. After a moment of inaction, Sasuke grabbed his head and collapsed to the ground, yelling in pain. As Hinata observed with her Byakugan, the seal was frantically attempting to attract chakra to itself. In some way that she was blind to, it was also attacking Sasuke. The way he was holding his head, she knew it was. She reasoned that this was related to the true nature of the curse marks. They appeared to be influenced by Orochimaru in some way. Hinata deduced that the man's influence was attempting valiantly to stay in Sasuke's very soul through this invisible attack. Seeing Sasuke go through this kind of pain broke Hinata's heart, but she knew it was necessary. Sasuke's curse mark started to wane after a battle that seemed to take years to Hinata but was actually only a minute or so long because it was unable to attract any chakra to itself. As the mark on Sasuke's shoulder gradually started to disappear, Hinata smiled. After a minute, the mark disappeared, and Sasuke dozed off. Hinata smiled at Anko, who was observing everything from the room's doorway. When she heard Sasuke scream, she had run. It worked, exclaimed Hinata. His mark is gone. Anko rushed to Sasuke after gasping. With tears in her eyes, she finally looked up at Hinata after searching his shoulder for the curse mark, which she was positive couldn't have been broken. She said, it really worked, in an emotionally charged voice. Please, do mine. Hinata let out a sigh. I don't think I can watch that again. Please, help me get him to a bed so he can rest, then we'll get someone to help once yours is gone. Then I will, she said after a few seconds. After giving a nod, Anko lifted Sasuke. She carried the boy to a bed, checked on him, and then went back to Hinata. To her utter surprise, she discovered that Naruto had also arrived. Well, we have help now. Please, Hinata, get rid of my curse mark now, she responded. Naruto gave Hinata a gentle shoulder pat. Hinata inhaled deeply and prepared herself. She then found Anko's curse mark, activated her Byakugan, and, blinking, struck the chakra points associated with it. When she was finished, Hinata covered her ears, turned away, and turned off her Byakugan. As expected, Anko snatched her head and screamed as she fell to the ground. Hinata's hands tightened around her ears. Naruto gazed in awe at the display. He saw Anko's curse mark start to fade and eventually disappear entirely. Similar to Sasuke, Anko eventually dozed off in fits. Uncertain of what to do, Naruto turned to face Hinata. Get her to a bed, she needs rest, Hinata said after she had untangled her ears. The mark is gone, she should be fine now. Naruto's two enormous chakra arms reached out and lifted Anko. As he did, he laughed to himself. He said, yeah, I know, just another broken seal, without addressing anyone specifically. Hinata did not respond. After some time, she had grown accustomed to Naruto's sporadic non-sequiturs. When he said something like that, she wondered to whom he was speaking, but she assumed that if it were important, he would tell her. Together with Anko, Naruto left the room, carried her to a bed, and laid her down. When the door to the room where Anko and Sasuke were now sleeping opened, he turned to go after settling her. And there stood Kimimaro. Naruto questioned, "What's going on, Kimimaro?" Kimimaro made a quick bow. "Lord Taiyokage, the boy from your old village has returned," he responded. After giving it some thought, Naruto asked, "You mean Kiba?" And Kimimaro nodded. Naruto gave a nod. "Take me to him." XXXXXX. Kiba was in the throne room, waiting. It was there that Kimimaro had met him. Kimimaro disappeared into the corridors surrounding the throne room after he informed her that he had something for either Naruto or Anko. In any case, Kiba was prepared to deal with a weirdo, even though he wasn't sure which one he hoped the other boy would bring back. A few minutes later, Kimimaro came back with Naruto. Kiba gave his friend a nod. After giving Naruto another bow, Kimimaro walked out of the room. Knowing that his guard was permitting him to speak with Kiba in private, Naruto laughed. He said to Kiba, "Kimimaro tells me you have something for me." Taking out the scroll that the Hokage had given him, Kiba nodded and gave it to Naruto. Naruto started reading after opening the scroll. It read, "The Leaf Village hereby extends an invitation to the denizens of the Hidden Sun Village to be our guests at a festival in your honor. Please do us the honor of attending. The festival will be held in 1 week from the date of your reception of this message, unless this does not work for you." After giving the scroll some thought, Naruto took it out even farther to write a reply. He created a chakra tail and used it as a temporary brush. He said, "We are not currently able to travel, as 2 shinobi here are currently recovering from a medical procedure. If you can postpone the festival until a month from the current date, we will attend." Turning his focus to Kiba, Naruto inquired, "Are you aware of what this says?" Kiba gave a nod. "The Hokage said I could read it. Are you going to come to the festival?" Naruto let out a sigh. "I really don't want to, but I don't think we can very well refuse to attend without causing an international incident. I have asked for a delay so that Anko and Sasuke may recover, but after that we will attend." Kiba laughed. "Everyone has really underestimated you, haven't they, Naruto?" asked he. Even though Kiba had already learned that lesson from their battle during the Chunin exam's preliminary round, he found it amusing how much Naruto had been underestimated by everyone. Naruto gave a shrug. "I just wish I could have been there to beat Neji into the ground," he said, grinning ferociously. "I'm used to it." The smile made Kiba shudder. That grin was unsettling, even though he knew it was still Naruto. When Naruto offered the scroll to Kiba, the former blonde accepted it. "I'll deliver this to the Hokage. I look forward to seeing you all at the festival," he replied. After Naruto nodded, Kiba walked away. Naruto let out a sigh. "I don't trust it, either, but I don't think there's anything I can do," he said, apparently to no one. XXXXXX Hinata let out a sigh. She was with Anko and Sasuke in the room. Even though their curse marks were completely gone, the two were sleeping, but it was obviously far from peaceful. Hinata kept hoping that she could somehow assist them as they both continued tossing and turning in their beds. She had already done what she could to help them, and she knew in the back of her mind that she was being stupid. She still hoped she could make their sleep more comfortable. After some time, Naruto entered the room. Hinata uttered, "Oh, there you are, where did you go?" Naruto informed her about the festival and Kiba's return. He continued, "I'm nervous about going back there, but I don't think we can really avoid it." Hinata extended her arm to give Naruto a light shoulder pat. She said, "We'll all be with you," as she met his glistening eyes. She had actually grown to appreciate the swimming colors in his eyes. She thought they were lovely, even though she knew no one else would. She added, blushing and clearing her throat, "I hope these two are ready to leave in time for the festival." Naruto gave a nod. "I hope so, too. It would be rather pointless to go back without them," he replied. "I'm not sure what's going on, but I doubt this festival is just to honor us." Hinata gave a nod. Her words, "That's probably the case, still, I think we can trust the Hokage. He wouldn't be trying to lure us into a trap or anything." Naruto laughed. "Yeah, that's true. Well, guess we better figure out who all is going to go with us," he replied. Hinata gave a nod. Naruto let out a sigh. "I wish we could get the marks off everyone here and take them all with us, but I don't think we can trust them all." Hinata gave a nod. "Honestly, I doubt we'll find many people here we can trust," she stated. "Kimimaro may well be the only person here we should take with us to this thing." Naruto gave a nod. He said, "That's probably true," with a sigh. Well, we better figure this all out. We only have so much time before we have to leave. At the Leaf Village 1 month later, gazing at the walls of his former residence, Naruto let out a sigh. He hadn't anticipated returning here so quickly. Are we ready? He asked, turning to face Hinata, Anko, Sasuke, and Kimimaro. The other three simply nodded as Hinata took Naruto's hand in hers. We're ready when you are, Naruto, Hinata uttered quietly. Naruto gave a nod. His eyes went back to the village. Let's get this over with, he said. Then the five made their way to the gate. After they identified themselves, the gate guard let them all in after briefly stopping them. 2 Chunin were posted there, and one of them said, "The Hokage is expecting you. You may proceed to the tower." Naruto gave a nod. He said, "Thank you," with grace. He knew better than to mouth off to anyone right now, even though it wasn't easy. Naruto observed the glances he was receiving as the small group moved through the village. His deep gravelly voice was filled with pain as he told his companions, "This is why I left. I knew the people here would never accept me like this." Approaching him, Hinata put an arm around his waist. Her words were, "Don't worry about what they think, you're still Naruto, and we all know it, you're not alone." Both Kiba and Anko nodded in agreement. Behind Naruto, Kimimaro raised her voice. "You are Lord Taiokage. I will protect you, no matter what," he declared. "I don't care what they think of you." Naruto grinned. "Sincerely, thanks, guys," he said. Nevertheless, they walked quietly to the Hokage's office. Naruto knocked on the door of the Hokage's office after arriving there. Normally, he would have entered without knocking, but since he was acting as Taiokage and was, to be honest, a little nervous right now, he felt it was crucial to be as appropriate as possible. Hiruzen heard the knock and looked up. He said, "Come in, please." The Hokage was taken aback by how different the blonde he knew so well actually was when Naruto walked in. He had heard Kiba's description of the boy, but it was a completely different matter to see it with his own eyes. In front of the Hokage, Naruto stood. After Hiruzen failed to initiate conversation, Naruto remarked, "It's good to see you again, old man." Hiruzen laughed. "It really is still you, isn't it, Naruto?" he replied. Naruto grinned toothily as he nodded. Even though he was feeling cold, Hiruzen returned the smile. "I get it, Naruto." Naruto took a moment to understand the Hokage's meaning. He assumed he was saying that he knew why Naruto had left. He said, "Why I left, you mean? Then why the hell did you practically force me to come back here like this?" the Hokage said, nodding. Hiruzen let out a sigh. "Well, I am the Hokage. I couldn't very well let my shinobi be out there, creating a new village, could I?" he replied. After giving that some thought, Naruto let out a sigh. "I suppose I get your point, but would you want to be dragged back to a village that shunned you for having a demon in your belly when now you are the demon?" This made Hiruzen look ashamed. "No, I wouldn't," he replied. He paused before continuing, saying, "All the same, if you all are amenable to it, I brought you here to invite you to rejoin the shinobi ranks of the Hidden Leaf Village." Taking note of Kimimaro, he continued, "And you are welcome to join the ranks if you wish. Naruto, if you hate me, I totally understand." Naruto gave this some thought. Being Hokage had always been his dream. He was determined to keep that dream alive. He could never be Hokage unless he returned to the village. However, he had come to the realization that there were other things in this world that were more significant than being Hokage after he became Taiokage and witnessed Hinata learn how to break the curse marks. In the big picture, he reasoned, some of them might even be more significant. "I think I speak for all of us when I say it is an agreeable proposition you have posed. However, I do have a couple conditions," Naruto said, turning to face the Hokage. At this, the Hokage arched an eyebrow. "Conditions?" he inquired. "Like what?" Naruto inhaled deeply. "First, if I am going to return here, I need free reign to carry out a few missions of my own," he said. Before Naruto could continue, Hiruzen cut him off. "What kind of missions?" Naruto let out a sigh. "While going through Orochimaru's records in the old Hidden Sound village, I found files detailing where his other hideouts are. I intend to make raids on these hideouts, save anyone who can be saved, and destroy any of his failed experiments who are better off dead anyway. Also, anyone who has curse marks on them in those hideouts and wants the marks removed, we will offer that service to them." The Hokage thought about it. "All right, that's acceptable. What else?" After acknowledging this with a nod, Naruto stated, "Second, if I am to be assigned a team, I must be given free reign to choose the team from shinobi I trust. If not, I cannot be sure they won't judge me for being what I am now." Hiruzen laughed. "I don't think that will be a problem," he stated. Naruto smiled. "Kimimaro here is my personal guard. He will probably not allow himself to be assigned to a team. he stated. Kimimaro nodded in agreement with Naruto's assertion. Naruto went on, as such, he is to be assigned to me. He will not be an active shinobi, technically, he will simply accompany any team I am on. Hiruzen let out a sigh. That is acceptable within limits. If your mission requires a smaller number of shinobi, he may have to stay behind, he stated. Naruto gave a nod. That's fine. In those instances, he will remain at my home, he replied. After that, he had an idea. Speaking of which, where will I be living? I assume my old apartment has been rented out to someone else by now. Hiruzen gave a nod. It has. I have found a larger apartment that the owner is willing to rent to you, however, he replied. Naruto gave a nod. Sincerely, I appreciate that, old man, he said. Hiruzen chuckled. It's nothing, Naruto. You saved the village, after all, he replied. Naruto blinked, perplexed. On your way out of the village, you stopped the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed Tanuki from attacking the village. That's why this festival is being held, by the way. After giving this some thought, Naruto nodded. I see, was all he said. He was at a loss for words. Speaking of the festival, Hiruzen continued, we should get you down there. You're the guest of honor. The festival just won't be the same without you there. Naruto gave a toothy smile. It'll be nice to have everyone acknowledge me for something good, for once, said the man. Hiruzen let out a loud laugh. He remarked, come on, you clown. The 6 ninja departed the Hokage's office and headed downstairs, saying, we have a festival to attend. They were anticipating the festival because it was an uncommon opportunity for a shinobi to unwind and enjoy themselves, and they all knew to cherish those moments when they did occur. The 6 of them had a great time that evening, and this was no exception. As the celebration came to an end, Naruto was sitting on the village wall, taking in the fireworks show that had been planned as the event's finale. He had Hinata sitting next to him. I'm glad we're back, even if things aren't exactly how I thought they would be, Naruto said, turning to face the girl with the blue hair. Hinata grinned. I am, too. It'll be nice to see everyone again. I just hope our friends accept you. I would hate to disown any of them, she replied. Naruto gave a nod. I hope they do, too. Regardless, I'll be fine, as long as you're with me, he replied. Hinata reddened. The simple statement, I'm not going anywhere, Naruto, was hers. Naruto encircled her with his arms. The words, thank you, Hinata gave him a perplexed look. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for accepting me. Hinata put her arms around Naruto and buried her face in his chest, taking a small whiff of his aroma. You don't have to thank me, Naruto, she said quietly. Naruto could clearly hear her thanks to his newly developed sense of hearing. I will always be here. Inhaling deeply, Naruto committed Hinata's scent to memory. He loved her very much. In the back of his mind, he knew that he was feeling very possessive of Hinata at the time. She was his, and he would be furious with anyone who attempted to take her away. The tail on the back of Naruto's head reached around and struck him in the face just as he opened his mouth to speak to Hinata. To no one in particular, Naruto declared, I said she's mine, and I meant it. When Hinata realized he was referring to her, she flushed. Thought to herself, I'm his. She tightened her grip on Naruto and concentrated all of her energy on avoiding fainting. As Hinata's hold on Naruto grew stronger, he grinned. He muttered to himself, she is just too adorable. He placed his chin on top of Hinata's head and embraced her tighter. That's how the two sat until the fireworks ended. Hinata had never been happier, and Naruto had never felt so at ease. As long as they were alive, they would never forget it because it was the most ideal moment of their lives.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.